Chapter 1424. Yi Xian returned to his room. In front of him was the soul-quelling sword. The soul-quelling sword had not broken through, but she had reached a critical point. If she had absorbed Yi Jun's soul, she would have broken through. Unfortunately, Yi Jun had escaped. Yi Jun's escape also made Yi Xian understand that experts above the Dao attainment realm were not so easy to kill. After a long silence, Yi Xian suddenly kept the soul-quelling sword and left. As for Nian Nian, she was still in the prison pagoda. It was too dangerous for her to be out there. One must know that the person in Yuan was truly afraid of was not Yi Xian, but Nian Nian. Yi Xian arrived in the starry sky of the fifth dimension. Su Zhe was in this starry sky. Su Zhe did not leave with his people. If he did, the experts from Yuan would definitely come out in full force. That was not something the fifth dimension could fight against. Seeing Yi Xian, Su Zhe smiled faintly. Young friend, you managed to injure Yi Jun with a single strike. With such strength, not to mention the fifth dimension, even in the whirling world, among the younger generation, you are considered a top existence. Yi Xian shook his head. Senior must be joking. I was able to injure Yi Jun because he underestimated me and lowered his realm. If not for that, I'm afraid I would not be his opponent. Su Zhe's eyes flashed with surprise. Yi Xian had destroyed Yi Jun's body with a single strike, but he did not feel complacent. This surprised him. Yi Xian cupped his fists. Thank you for your help. I, Yi Xian, am eternally grateful. Su Zhe collected his thoughts and smiled. And Yuan's enemy is my ancient god Abyss's friend. Yi Xian hesitated, then said, Senior has seen Qing'er? The woman in the plain dress. The smile on Su Zhe's face gradually disappeared. He nodded slightly. Greetings, Senior. Yi Xian quickly asked, did she say anything? Su Zhe smiled bitterly. When they first met that senior, she wanted to destroy the ancient god Abyss because their strength threatened Yi Xian. Su Zhe shook his head and smiled. Little friend, she didn't say anything else. She just asked us not to hurt you. Yi Xian was speechless. Su Zhe hesitated for a moment before asking, young friend, may I ask what is Senior's background? In fact, she had investigated Yi Xian and the plain-dressed woman. She knew a lot about Yi Xian, but she knew practically nothing about the plain-dressed woman. Too mysterious. What is Qing'er's background? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Actually, he didn't know either. He only knew that her name was Qing'er and that she was his relative. Other than that, he knew nothing about her background. Seeing that Yi Xian didn't answer, Su Zhe didn't ask any further. Instead, he changed the topic. Young friend, with Senior strength, it shouldn't be difficult for her to destroy the ancient god Abyss. Why is she? Yi Xian sighed softly. Senior, don't you understand? She doesn't even care about the ancient god Abyss. Hearing this, Su Zhe's face gradually became solemn. That's right. With Senior strength, does she need to care about the ancient god Abyss? Just like an elephant, does it need to care about an ant? At this moment, Yi Xian asked again, Senior, you should know about the cause of misfortune, right? Su Zhe nodded. Just as he was about to speak, he seemed to have thought of something. His pupils shrank abruptly. Young friend, do you mean to say that she is blocking the cause of misfortune for you? Yi Xian nodded. Su Zhe's expression became incomparably solemn. No wonder you were able to survive until now. I see, Yi Xian suddenly asked, Senior, what is the realm above Dao attainment? Su Zhe said in a low voice, Unity. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Unity? Su Zhe nodded. Unity of all laws, unity of all Daos. Experts who have reached this level can unite all laws and Daos in the world into one. Currently, whether it is the ancient god Abyss or the ancient god Abyss, experts of this level are few and far between. As for the Dao attainment realm, although there are many Dao attainment realm experts in the ancient god Abyss, those who can truly attain Dao can be counted on one hand. Yi Xian was a little puzzled. Truly attain Dao attainment realm? Suja nodded his head slightly. Every realm is divided into true and false. Some Dao-attained realm cultivators are not as strong as they used to be. Just like Yi Jun, he was not as strong as he used to be. It could be said that his true strength was not even 60% of the Dao-attained realm. If the other party is not as powerful, even if you suppress your realm, you may not be able to defeat him. Just like you, even if you suppress your realm to the Dao validation realm, within the Dao validation realm, there are not many who can be your opponent. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Suja continued, the ancient god abyss has three venerables, the heavenly venerable, the earthly venerable, and the human venerable. All three are at the consolidation realm, but the heavenly venerable is the most terrifying, because she is the kind of consolidation that is not as powerful as before. Other than that, the ancient god abyss also has the yin-yang gods. These two have reached the peak of the consolidation realm tens of thousands of years ago. As for now, I'm afraid they are unfathomable. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian. Young friend, I still want to advise you. Why don't you come with me to the ancient god abyss? There, the ancient god abyss can protect you. If you are in the fifth dimension, the ancient god abyss will not be able to help you. Yi Xian said in a low voice, I appreciate Senior's kindness. But you know, if I leave here, the ancient god abyss will definitely threaten me with the fifth dimension. I will not give up on the fifth dimension. Suja sighed softly. But forgive me for being blunt, young friend, with your current strength, there is no way you can fight against the ancient god abyss. Unless Miss Nian Nian regains her memory, or the person behind young friend appears. Yi Xian was silent. When would Nian Nian regain her memory? He did not know. As for the Netherworld Temple, the current Netherworld Temple would not have time to care about him. It could be said that he could only face everything by himself. Yi Xian collected his thoughts and looked at Suja. Senior, if I may be so bold as to ask a favor. Suja nodded. Young friend, please speak. Yi Xian said in a low voice, Senior, I want you to stay in the fifth dimension for 3 months. I need 3 months. Suja was silent. Yi Xian suddenly said, if I meet Qing, or in the future, if you have any questions or want to know, I can ask Qing, or on your behalf. Hearing this, Suja's expression changed. He cupped his fists and said, if that's the case, then this old man will thank you in advance. If he could ask the woman in the plain dress for advice, it would definitely be beneficial. A pointer from that kind of expert was equivalent to 10,000 years of hard work. Suja continued, little friend, I will transfer 26 Dao completion experts to the fifth dimension. Apart from this, I will personally invite my master to the fifth dimension just in case. With him here, even if the heavenly sovereign personally takes action, he will not be able to do anything to you. Yi Xian cupped his fists and said, many thanks. Suja smiled. Young friend, this old man also has a favor to ask. Yi Xian smiled. Senior, please speak. Suja became serious. If you really manage to gather all the Dao scriptures in the future, I hope that you can borrow my ancient god's abyss to take a look. Is that possible? Yi Xian smiled. Of course. Suja smiled. Thank you. After chatting with Suja for a while, Yi Xian turned around and left. Suja also left the fifth dimension. From the current situation, he knew that even he could not control this place. Because not only was there the dark abyss, there was also the whirling world. It was really difficult. In the starry sky, Suja suddenly stopped in his tracks. Not far in front of him, stood a woman. The heavenly venerables. Suja narrowed his eyes. I didn't expect the heavenly venerables to personally come forward. The heavenly venerables laughed. Suja, in my impression, you are a cunning person. But this time, it doesn't seem worth it for you to help Yi Xian. That doesn't seem like your style. Suja was expressionless. The enemy of the ancient god's abyss is the friend of the ancient god's abyss. The heavenly venerables shook his head and laughed. No. If I'm not wrong, you are helping him because of the woman behind him. Suzhou looked at the heavenly venerables and did not speak. The heavenly venerables' lips curled up. Suzhou, I am really curious. How strong is the woman in the plain dress? How could the ancient god's abyss spare no effort to help Yi Xian? Suzhou laughed. It seems that you are also investigating the woman in the plain dress. He wanted to call him senior, but after thinking about it, he decided not to. Why should he let the ancient god's abyss know how strong the woman in the plain dress was? Wouldn't it be better to let them do what they want? The heavenly venerables looked at Suzhou. As far as I know, the Whirling sect, Xianhuan sect, and the number 1 aristocratic family, the Shao clan, have all sent people to the 5th dimension. In addition, the Whirling World Xuanji sect has already built a transmission array. Once the transmission array is completed, it will be much easier for the Whirling World to come to the 5th dimension. When that time comes, do you know what Yi Xian will face? Oh yes, there is also the ancient god's abyss. Suzhou was silent. The heavenly venerables laughed. Suzhou, the ancient god's abyss is helping Yi Xian. This is equivalent to making everyone your enemy. Suzhou laughed. So what? The heavenly venerables looked at Suzhou. After a moment of silence, she laughed. It seems that the woman in the plain dress is stronger than I thought. But do you think that she can deal with everyone? Suzhou looked at the heavenly venerables and laughed. Heavenly venerables, since you have been persuading me for so long, I will also give you a word of advice. Whether it is the ancient god's abyss or the ancient god's abyss, it has not been easy for us to survive until now. The world itself is already very difficult. Why do we still have to work hard? Is the Tao scripture really that important? Is it not good to be alive? The heavenly venerables looked at Suzhou. How strong is she? Suzhou was silent. The heavenly venerables laughed. Let me rephrase my question. If I were to fight with her, what percentage would I have? Suzhou looked at the heavenly venerables. You? The heavenly venerables nodded. I should have some chance of winning, right? Suzhou was silent for a moment before replying. Let's make it 3-7. You 3, she 7. The heavenly venerables blinked. Really? Suzhou replied calmly, I have never lied to anyone before. The heavenly venerables laughed. I know. Thank you for telling me. After saying that, she turned and disappeared into the horizon. Suzhou said softly, the feeling of lying is so F***king satisfying. No wonder little friendy likes to lie. Chapter 1425. The Five-Dimensional Universe. Inside the sword hall, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. In front of him was Jia Lu. He was currently teaching Jia Lu the Tao scripture mantra. Jia Lu also cultivated a Tao body, but she did not cultivate the Tao scripture mantra. Now, he was teaching her the Tao scripture mantra without reservation. Jia Lu's strength was the closest to the Tao attainment realm. If she cultivated the Tao scripture mantra, her strength would reach a terrifying level. For now, even Yi Xian could not compare to her. After all, she was a member of the Dragon clan and had a unique advantage. A moment later, Jia Lu stood up and looked at Yi Xian. Thank you. With that, she returned to the prison pagoda. After a moment of silence, Yi Xian stood up and left the hall. At this time, Yi Jiming's voice sounded in his mind. What plans do you have next? Yi Xian chuckled. What plans can I have? I can only take one step at a time. Yi Jiming said solemnly, we must let Nian Nian recover her memory. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. I also want to, but you know Nian Nian's situation. She doesn't even know when she will recover her memory. After a moment of silence, Yi Jiming said, do you still remember what your aunt said? Yi Xian asked. What did she say? Yi Jiming said solemnly, she said that she could not interfere with Nian Nian's matters. In other words, Nian Nian's memory loss might have been intentional. Yi Xian frowned slightly. On purpose? Yi Jiming said, that's my guess. But why did she lose her memory? Is it because of the five-dimensional universe? But now that the five-dimensional universe has recovered. Yi Xian was silent. In fact, he was also very puzzled. Why did Nian Nian lose her memory? Did she not want to remember the past? That shouldn't be the case. At this time, a middle-aged man suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. The moment this middle-aged man appeared, Venerable Mi appeared behind Yi Xian. Yi Xian looked at the middle-aged man. From the Saha world? The middle-aged man smiled and said, the great elder of the profound error sect, Li Qiuheng. Yi Xian said with a smile, sire must have come for the Tao scripture. Li Qiuheng nodded. Young Master Yi, before I came, and Yuan came looking for me. They wanted to cooperate with my Black Nebulous sect, but I didn't agree immediately. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, Young Master Yi, do you know why I didn't agree immediately? Yi Xian shook his head, I don't know. Li Qiuheng smiled and said, Young Master Yi, you are a smart person. You should understand that with your strength and the strength of the fifth dimension, it is impossible to protect those Tao scriptures. If that's the case, why don't you hand it over and keep it safe? Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. Sire, if I hand over the Tao scripture, will you really let me go? Li Qiuheng looked at Yi Xian. If you are willing to hand it over, I can't guarantee anything else, but I can guarantee that my Black Nebulous sect will not be your enemy. Yi Xian was silent. Li Qiuheng smiled and said, I know that there is a powerful and mysterious force behind young Master Yi. However, young Master Yi, do you really think that the people behind you can fight against the major sects of the Saha world and in Yuan at the same time? Yi Xian didn't say anything. Li Qiuheng shook his head and smiled. Young Master Yi might not understand the Saha world. I can only tell you that any one of the top forces in the Saha world can easily destroy the entire fifth dimension. Yi Xian thought about it and then said, what Senior said makes sense. This Tao scripture is a disaster in the hands of me, Yi Xian. However, I am a bit unwilling to hand it over like this. Li Qiuheng smiled and said, it is normal to be unwilling. However, although treasures are good, life is more important, isn't it? Yi Xian smiled and said, Senior, if I hand over the 6 Tao scriptures to you, will I get any benefits? Li Qiuheng looked at Yi Xian and said, you still want benefits? Yi Xian chuckled and said, if there are no benefits, who wouldn't I hand it over to? I don't necessarily have to hand it over to Senior, what do you think? Li Qiuheng pointed at Yi Xian and smiled. Greedy. No, you want to use the Tao scripture to stall for time and buy time for yourself. Young Master Yi, do you really think that you can deal with our major forces? You're thinking too simply of us. We won't give you this opportunity. 5 days, if you don't hand over the Tao scripture in 5 days, we will make you and the entire fifth dimension disappear from this world. Of course, young Master Yi can also hurry up and call for reinforcements. If you are late, it will be too late. After saying that, he turned around and left. After taking a few steps, he suddenly stopped and turned to look at Yi Xian and said, I heard that the woman behind you is very strong. Yi Xian looked at Li Qiuheng and Li Qiuheng smiled and said, if you are pinning your hopes on her, then let me tell you. Let me tell you, in the future, you will find out what a stupid idea this is. After saying that, he turned around and disappeared into the horizon. Just as Li Qiuheng disappeared, Xian Chu appeared in front of Yi Xian. Xian Chu looked at Yi Xian and said, don't mind it, the whirling world is the birthplace of the Tao scripture and martial arts civilization. The people there look at the people outside the universe like city people look at country people. Yi Xian smiled and said, I don't mind it at all. I am even a little happy. Xian Chu looked at Yi Xian and understood. The more the whirling world looked down on Yi Xian, the happier Yi Xian was. Xian Chu said in a deep voice, what are your plans next? As far as I know, the experts of the Xuanhuan sect are already on their way, and there are many of them. In addition, the Xuanji sect is also building a teleportation array. Speaking of this, she looked at Yi Xian and said, originally, it was impossible for the Xuanji sect to build a teleportation array that can lead to the five-dimensional universe, because it is extremely difficult to come here from the whirling world. Even the experts of the consolidation realm can't easily come to this world. However, because of the Tao scripture, the major forces of the whirling world have united like never before. Their goal is not only the Tao scripture, but also your universe. Yi Xian said in a deep voice, resources. Xian Chu nodded and said, if you want to develop, you must have resources. And your universe is a good target for the whirling world. In addition, because of the Tao scripture, the major forces of the whirling world have helped the Xuanji sect build a teleportation array. What the whirling world is after is not just the Tao scripture. Yi Xian looked calm and did not speak. No one knew what he was thinking. Xian Chu looked at Yi Xian and said, the current situation is that even if you hand over the Tao scripture, the whirling world and the dark abyss will not let you go. Your five-dimensional universe, the Tao world, the six-dimensional universe, the Tao Ting world, and the celestial abyss, especially those top-grade mineral veins, are all coveted by them. Of course, the most important thing is the Tao scripture. You have 6 Tao scriptures, and in addition to the 2 from the dark abyss, you have a total of 8 Tao scriptures. They will go crazy. Yi Xian said with a smile, Xian Chu, what are you trying to say? Xian Chu said in a deep voice, I want your 6 Tao scriptures. If you give them to me, I can help you. Yi Xian said with a smile, how can I help? Xian Chu said, as long as you give me the Tao scripture, whether it is the dark abyss or the whirling world, my whirling sect will help you deal with them. Yi Xian looked at Xian Chu and said, the whirling sect is that strong? Xian Chu nodded, yes. Yi Xian said with a smile, Xian Chu, I trust you, but I don't trust the whirling sect. Do you understand what I mean? Xian Chu frowned slightly, do you think I don't have the ability to make decisions? Yi Xian nodded. Xian Chu's expression was calm, if there are no accidents, I will be the next whirling sect master. Yi Xian shook his head, Xian Chu, you said it yourself. If there are no accidents. Also, Miss Xian Chu, I, Yi Xian, will not put my fate in the hands of others. If I give you the Tao scripture and you suddenly ignore me, won't I be embarrassed? Xian Chu was silent. Yi Xian said with a smile, Miss Xian Chu, I appreciate your kindness. After saying that, he turned and left. Xian Chu looked at Yi Xian in the distance and sighed softly. At this time, an old man appeared beside her and said in a deep voice, Heavenly Venerable and Yuan contacted us. He asked if we are interested in joining forces. Xian Chu shook her head, I'm not interested. The old man frowned slightly, why? Xian Chu spoke softly, because I feel that something bad will happen if they target Yi Xian like this. The old man spoke in a low voice, you're talking about the people behind him? Xian Chu closed her eyes slowly, so many people are bullying him, so those people definitely won't sit idly by. The old man hesitated for a moment before he said, I know that the Blackout Sect, the Profound Secret School, the Shao Clan, and the Tao Return Institute have joined forces within Yuan this time. Their true objective isn't just Yi Xian himself, it's the people behind him as well. If we don't participate now, then once Yi Xian is defeated in the future, our whirling sect won't have a share in the Tao scripture. Moreover, we might even be isolated by these powers. So, now. Xian Chu suddenly looked at the old man, is this what the sect master wants? The old man shook his head, the sect master wants you and exalt you to make the decision. Xian Chu spoke in a low voice, when will master arrive? The old man replied, I don't know. Xian Chu looked at the old man, and the old man spoke in a low voice, Exalt You has already stopped contacting me. She might have already arrived in the 5th dimension. Xian Chu fell silent. The old man continued, there's one more thing, and that is that the transmission array has already been completed under the alliance of several great powers. The Tao scripture is almost complete. Once it's completed, a large number of super experts will rush over to the 5th dimension. At that time, Yi Xian will. He didn't continue. Xianchu spoke softly. Their true objective is the people behind Yi Xian and Mu Nianyan. The old man nodded, and Yuan will also send a large number of experts to the fifth dimension. They only have one goal, and that is to force the power behind Yi Xian to show themselves. Then, they will be destroyed. Xianchu looked down at the fifth dimension and spoke softly. Will they show themselves to help Yi Xian? The old man spoke in a low voice. If they don't show themselves, Yi Xian will definitely die. The fifth dimension will definitely be destroyed. At this moment, the old man turned around. Behind them was a woman. Senior Sister Lu. The old man glanced at Senior Sister Lu, but didn't speak. In fact, they already knew that Senior Sister Lu was here. Xianchu looked at Senior Sister Lu. Can you persuade Yi Xian? Senior Sister Lu was expressionless. Why should I persuade him? Does he really think that the Yang family is easy to bully? After saying this, she turned around and left. Xianchu frowned slightly. Yang family? What family? The old man shook his head. Never heard of it. Xianchu was silent. Spirit Palace. On this day, Senior Sister Lu came to the Spirit Palace and found Ling Er. She looked at Ling Er. You can contact that little white fellow, right? Ling nodded. Senior Sister Lu was expressionless. Contact her. Ling hesitated for a moment, then opened a box. Somewhere in the distant starry sky, the little white thing next to the azure-robed man suddenly stopped. She hurried to open a box. A moment later, she suddenly lifted her head to look at Yi Xian. Then she waved her little paw quickly. The green-robed man was silent. Beside him, the spear-wielding woman looked at the green-robed man. If you don't care, I will go back. The green-robed man shook his head. It's too late. We are too far away from him. Unless we shatter the starry sky. Even if we shatter the starry sky, it will still take a month. The spear-wielding woman raised her eyebrows slightly. So what? The green-robed man held the spear-wielding woman's hand and said softly, I will inform a few people. As his voice fell, he opened his palm, and a ray of sword light suddenly shot up into the sky. The next moment, the ray of sword light split into several rays of sword aura and disappeared in the starry sky. On the peak of an unknown mountain, a woman sat cross-legged on a boulder. Suddenly, she opened her eyes. In the sky in front of her, the space was torn apart by a ray of sword aura. The woman opened her right hand, and the ray of sword aura fell into her hand. When she saw the sword aura, the woman looked excited. You finally contacted me. As she said this, she frowned slightly. The five-dimensional universe? The dark abyss? I should have killed all these pieces of trash back then. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly drew her sword and slashed forward. With this slash, the space in front of her split open. In the next moment, she turned into a ray of sword light and entered the pitch-black space. Soon after, a ray of sword light tore through the pitch-black space tunnel. On the other side, in an unknown galaxy, a woman slowly walked in a resplendent galaxy. The starry sky around her was dazzling, mysterious, and beautiful. This woman wore a white robe, and there was a wine gourd hanging on her waist. At this moment, the woman suddenly stopped. Not far in front of her, there was a black door floating in the air. The woman said softly, the cause of disaster. Brother, was it forced on you by others, or is it your own? I will investigate clearly. As she said this, she walked towards the black door floating in the air. At this moment, a ray of sword aura suddenly appeared not far behind her. The woman turned around and opened her palm. The ray of sword aura fell into her palm. A moment later, the woman's expression suddenly became ferocious. Bandit Yang, if anything happens to him, I will fuse with that woman and blow your dog head off. After saying that, she suddenly threw a punch in front of her. Boom! Under this punch, the starry sky was destroyed, and nothing existed. The next moment, a ray of white light tore through the pitch-black space. This was an unknown starry sky. In the starry sky, there was a stone staircase that was millions of feet long. The stone staircase stood in the starry sky, and at the end of the stone staircase, there was a huge stone door. On the stone staircase, a swordsman wearing a cloud-white robe walked slowly. P.S. The college entrance examination is over. Tomorrow will be early. One vote is also love. Chapter 14:26. Around them, the starry sky was deathly silent. On the stone steps, swordsman was walking slowly and calmly. At the bottom of the stone steps, there was a sloppily dressed old man. The old man's hair was long and messy, and at his waist, there was a small black wine pot. At this moment, this sloppy old man was staring at the swordsman on the stone steps. The stone steps were 990,000 zhang in total. 1 zhang was a Tao law, 1 zhang was a heaven and earth, 1 zhang was a whirling wind. The stone steps were the road, and the stone door at the end was the legendary Tao gate. What was the Tao gate? According to legend, it was an inheritance left behind by the Tao scripture's owner. Once you enter the Tao gate, you can obtain the Tao. After the Tao scripture's owner, no one had ever reached the Tao gate. Even the 4 disciples of the Tao scripture's owner did not. Not only that, they did not even reach half the distance. At this moment, swordsman was only 10,000 zhang away from the Tao gate. At this time, the swordsman suddenly sped up. He walked faster and faster. The Tao law on the Tao path did not seem to have any effect on him. Seeing the swordsman suddenly speed up, the sloppy old man's pupils shrank, his eyes filled with disbelief. Soon, the swordsman arrived in front of the Tao gate. The stone door slowly opened, and a voice floated out from inside. Enter this door, and you can obtain the Tao. The swordsman chuckled. Tao? Can you block my sword? With that, he turned around and floated away. The stone door was empty and quiet. When the swordsman returned to the starting point, the sloppy old man suddenly said with a trembling voice, Your Excellency, why don't you go in and see? You can obtain the true Tao by entering this door. The swordsman did not look back. I am already invincible, why would I need to enter the Tao? The sloppy old man was petrified. At this time, the starry sky several hundred zhang in front of the swordsman suddenly split open, and a strand of sword chi floated out. The swordsman opened his palm, and the strand of sword chi steadily fell in front of him. A moment later, the swordsman looked up into the distance and whispered, The 5-dimensional universe? At this point, he turned to look at the sloppy old man. Can you do me a small favor? The sloppy old man hurriedly said, Senior, please speak. Senior. In fact, the sloppy old man felt rather complicated. How many years had it been? When had he ever called anyone senior? Swordsman smiled faintly. The son of an old friend has encountered some trouble in the 5th dimension. The people there are too weak, so I have no interest in going there. However, the son of an old friend is in trouble, so I have no choice but to help, so, the slovenly old man hurriedly said, This junior is willing to go and help. This was a great opportunity to form a good relationship. Why would such an expert seek his help? Such an opportunity was hard to come by even in 10,000 years. Swordsman nodded. Since you've done me a favor, I should also do you a favor. Tell me. The sloppy old man hurriedly bowed respectfully, Senior, please give me some pointers. Swordsman shook his head. I can't guide you. The sloppy old man was puzzled. Why? Swordsman chuckled. You are within the realm, but I am not. The sloppy old man was stunned. Not within the realm? Swordsman nodded. I don't have a realm. The sloppy old man, swordsman suddenly walked into the distance. The Tao is in the heart, and you are the Tao. There is no need to become someone else's Tao. Since you have reached the end of the road, why not try another one? As he spoke, he had already disappeared at the end of the starry sky. At the same time, a voice came from the end of the starry sky. Actually, there is nothing wrong with being weak. At least, you can taste the taste of defeat. At the stone steps, the sloppy old man was silent. After a long time, he respectfully bowed towards the distance. Thank you for your guidance. As he said this, he turned to look at the stone door with a complicated expression. Master, I finally know why you are disappointed in us. It turns out that you don't want us to follow your path. After saying this, he turned and left. Qingcheng. On this day, a woman arrived at Qingcheng. The woman wore a long white dress and was as beautiful as a fairy. As soon as she stepped into Qingcheng, she attracted the attention of countless people around her. Although many people around her had lustful thoughts, no one dared to offend her. The woman slowly arrived at the Yi family. At this time, the Yi family had already declined. There were only a few people left in the entire Yi family. The woman walked towards the Yi family. At this time, a Yi family guard blocked in front of the woman. He glanced at the woman. You are? The woman smiled faintly, and in the next moment, she had already disappeared. The guard was stunned. When the woman reappeared, she was already in the Yi residence. To be precise, she was in the small courtyard where Yi Xian and Yi Ling used to live. The woman looked around and smiled. Yi Xian, at this time, a weak voice sounded behind the woman. You are? The woman turned around. In front of her stood an extremely weak old man. The woman looked at the old man and did not speak. The old man said with a trembling voice, Do you know Yi Xian? The woman nodded. I do. The old man hurriedly asked, Is he dead? The woman shook her head. No. The old man was stunned. Then, he fell to the ground. He's not dead yet, the woman looked at the old man. You're going to die. The old man smiled miserably. I know, the woman smiled. You want him to die? Why is that? The old man's expression suddenly became resentful. He killed my grandson and caused me to become like this. Do you think I shouldn't want him to die? The woman shook her head and smiled. So it's you. I heard that you forced him to leave the Yi family. The old man stared at the woman. He was never a member of the Yi family. The woman smiled. In your heart, you think that your grandson and the Yi family patriarch's position are the most important. But do you know that your so-called patriarch's position is nothing in his eyes? He was born in your Yi family. In fact, it was a great opportunity for your Yi family. If you had used this opportunity well, I believe that the fate of your Yi family would have been changed. Unfortunately, you forcibly turned this opportunity into an ill-fated relationship. The old man looked at the woman. What level has he reached now? Has he reached the Dharma realm? The woman blinked. Dharma realm? The old man stared at the woman. I heard that the strongest in the entire Azure province is the Dharma realm. Has he reached the Dharma realm? The woman smiled. He's probably tens of thousands of times stronger than the Dharma realm. With his current strength, he should be able to destroy your Azure province with a sneeze. Hearing this, the old man was stunned. Then, as if he had gone mad, he said, Impossible. He can't be that strong. The woman ignored the old man. She turned around and looked around. Then, she said softly, This small place can't cultivate someone like him. With that, she slowly closed her eyes. Soon, the surrounding space trembled. Seeing this, the old man's expression changed. He quickly retreated. At this moment, the woman suddenly opened her eyes. She narrowed her eyes. I can't find out. What kind of force is behind you? A moment later, the woman turned around and left. Behind her, the old man said in a trembling voice, Who are you? The woman smiled. I come from the whirling world. You probably haven't heard of it. This time, I came to the Yi family to see his past and then to see the woman behind him. Unfortunately, she didn't leave any information. However, it's not like I didn't gain anything. After saying that, she disappeared. Whirling world? In the field, the old man's eyes were filled with confusion. What was that place? The five-dimensional universe. Somewhere in the starry sky, the Celestial Venerable stood quietly. Behind her were the Master and the Earth Venerable. On the right of the Celestial Venerable stood a middle-aged man. He was Li Qiuheng of the Xuanhuan sect. Opposite Li Qiuheng was a middle-aged man. This person was Yi Jun, whose body had been destroyed by Yi Xian. At this moment, an old man suddenly appeared in front of everyone. Li Qiuheng glanced at the old man and smiled. So it's Elder Hu Bugui of the Dao Returning Academy. The old man called Hu Bugui said indifferently, I heard that you're preparing to join forces to deal with the force behind Yi Xian? The Celestial Venerable smiled. Yes. Hu Bugui looked at the Celestial Venerable. Count the Dao Returning Academy in. The Celestial Venerable smiled. Welcome. Li Qiuheng suddenly looked at the Celestial Venerable. Celestial Venerable, is the force behind Yi Xian really that strong? The Celestial Venerable said softly, everyone, there was a woman who appeared to help Yi Xian before, and she killed my third brother in the Dark Abyss Forbidden Area. My third brother is also at the Consolidation Realm, and the other party is only a clone. Hearing this, everyone's expressions became solemn. A clone. A clone had killed a Consolidation Realm expert. The Celestial Venerable continued, also, you should already know that Yi Xian has the calamity cause, but he's still alive. If I'm not wrong, someone must be blocking the calamity cause for him. In the distance, Hu Bugui frowned. What kind of force is it? The Celestial Venerable shook his head. I don't know, but I'm sure that it's definitely a very strong force. Very strong? Hu Bugui sneered. Isn't that a little exaggerated? The Celestial Venerable looked at Hu Bugui and smiled. Can you kill a Consolidation Realm expert with a clone? Hu Bugui fell silent. He couldn't. Hu Bugui looked at the Celestial Venerable. But I don't think there are many experts of that level. The Celestial Venerable asked, what if there are many? Hu Bugui frowned. How is that possible? Even in the whirling world, there aren't many experts of that level, the Celestial Venerable smiled. What if there are many? At this moment, Li Qiuheng suddenly said, the Celestial Venerable is right, what if there are many? Even if there aren't many, what if there are 2 or 3? Hu Bugui fell silent. The Celestial Venerable smiled. I, and Yuan, suffered a great loss because I underestimated him. As she said this, she looked down and said softly, everyone, if we want to destroy Yi Xian and obtain the Tao scripture, we must first take care of the people behind him. So, this time, everyone, don't hide it anymore. Call as many experts as you can. Hu Bugui frowned. If we call too many experts, what if the people behind him are afraid and don't show up? Wouldn't it be a loss? The Celestial Venerable said softly, that's true. Chapter 1427. In the starry sky, Li Qiuheng said, we can do this, call more experts, but let the Consolidation Realm experts hide in the dark. Once the people behind Yi Xian appear, we can annihilate them in one fell swoop. As he spoke, he glanced at the crowd. What do you think? Li Qiuheng smiled and said, that's fine. As he spoke, he looked at the Celestial Venerate. Celestial Venerate, what do you think? After a moment of silence, the Empyrean said, I feel that we shouldn't underestimate the people behind him. It's better to be safe than sorry. Li Qiuheng smiled and said, I know Sky Sovereign's concerns. Therefore, just in case, my Black Illusion sect will send 6 Peak Consolidation Realm experts and 20 Dao Attainment Realm experts to the 5th dimension. Hu Bugui added, the Dao Returning Academy will also send 6 Peak Unity Realm experts and 20 Dao Attainment Realm experts. As he spoke, he looked at Yi Jun. After a moment of silence, Yi Jun said, I'll withdraw. Quit. Everyone looked at Yi Jun. Yi Jun said indifferently, everyone, my Yi family isn't as strong as you all, so we won't get involved. With that, he turned around and left. Although the Yi family was not considered weak in the whirling world, it was not particularly strong either. He had initially sought out Yi Xian because he didn't know Yi Xian's background. However, after hearing the heavenly venerate's words, he realized that Yi Xian wasn't as simple as he seemed. Even the dark abyss needed to join forces with the whirling world. One could imagine how powerful the force behind Yi Xian was. At this time, if the Yi clan still wanted to participate, it would be very stupid. Moreover, even if he won in the end, the Yi family would not benefit at all, because the Yi family was much weaker than the other forces. Therefore, no matter if they won or lost, the Yi family would not benefit from it. Leaving was the best choice. As for the grudge of having his body severed by Yi Xian, he no longer cared. It was good enough that he was alive. The others didn't say anything when they saw Yi Jun leave, nor did they try to persuade him to leave. The Yi family's strength was indeed nothing to them. Meanwhile, Li Qiuheng suddenly said, "What's the attitude of the whirling sect?" The whirling sect. Everyone looked at the heavenly exalt when they heard this. The whirling sect's attitude was extremely important because the whirling sect was known as the #1 sect in the whirling world. After all, the whirling sect possessed the last Tao scripture. Yet, it was still standing. Just this alone was sufficient to prove how powerful the whirling sect was. The Empyrean said softly, "Their attitude is unclear. However, we can be sure that even if they don't help us, they will definitely not help Yi Xian." Li Qiuheng nodded. Although the whirling sect is strong, they will definitely not go against all of us just for Yi Xian. However, we have to be careful. If they really help Yi Xian, then the matter will be slightly troublesome. The Empyrean nodded. "I'll go see them again and probe their attitude." After that, she looked at Li Qiuheng. "When will Profound Theory Sect's teleportation array be completed?" Li Qiuheng said solemnly, 5 days at most." 5 days. The heavenly exalt nodded and said, "The Shao clan also participated in the construction of the teleportation formation, right?" Li Qiuheng nodded. "Not only the Shao clan, but the whirling sect also participated." The Empyrean smiled. "It seems that you are very ambitious." Li Qiuheng smiled. "Since we're here, we naturally can't just bring along the Tao scripture. What do you say, Empyrean?" The Empyrean smiled. "Of course. You guys chat. I'll go see the two from the whirling sect and see what their attitude is." After that, she left with the Earth Venerable and the deceased master. Li Qiuheng looked at the 5th dimension below. "Let's get ready." After that, everyone left. The starry sky became quiet. Dao City, inside the Sword Hall. Yi Xian and Guan Yin sat opposite each other. Venerable Mi was also beside Yi Xian. Yi Xian suddenly looked at Venerable Mi, "Are there many people coming recently?" Venerable Mi nodded. "In the 5th dimension, more and more mysterious experts are appearing. Most of them are from the whirling world." After that, he paused. "We must think of a countermeasure." Yi Xian nodded. "I know." After that, he looked at Guan Yin. "What's the overall situation in the 5th dimension?" Guan Yin said in a low voice, "There are no problems internally. But, if the whirling world and the dark abyss really join forces, then we..." Yi Xian was silent. Guan Yin said again, "No matter what, we cannot fight in the 5th dimension. Otherwise, it will cause a destructive blow to the 5th dimension." Venerable Mi sighed. "Their goal is the 5th dimension. Therefore, they will definitely not place the battlefield elsewhere. Moreover, we are very passive." After that, he looked at Yi Xian. "Sect Master, I feel that even if the ancient god Abyss helps us, we have no chance of winning. Moreover, if they pay too high a price, they will most likely withdraw." Yi Xian nodded. "This time, we can only rely on ourselves." Venerable Mi wanted to say something but stopped. Yi Xian said softly, "Based on the current situation, we have no chance of winning. Am I right?" Venerable Mi said in a low voice, "Unless Miss Nian Nian regains her memory." Nian Nian. Guan Yin and Yi Xian looked at Yi Xian. The only thing that could save the 5th dimension now was Nian Nian. As long as Nian Nian regained her memory, all the problems would be solved. But the problem was that Nian Nian showed no signs of recovering. Yi Xian suddenly stood up and left. Inside the hall, Venerable Mi and Guan Yin looked at each other. Yi Xian came to the starry sky and looked down at the fifth dimension. This was the place that Yi Xian wanted to protect. But now, with the whirling world and the dark world joining forces, could he still protect this universe? As if thinking of something, he opened his palm and 6 scrolls of Tao scripture appeared in his hand. Yi Jiming suddenly said, "What's your plan? Hand it over?" Yi Xian shook his head. It's useless to hand it over. Because their goal is not only the Tao scripture, but also this universe. Yi Jiming said in a low voice, compared to the whirling world, the 5th dimension and the Tao Ting are too weak. As for the ancient god abyss, as Venerable Mi said, if they pay too much, they will most likely retreat. Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming said again, "Do you want to use this Tao scripture to make them kill each other?" Yi Xian shook his head. Impossible. Those people are not stupid. If I do that, I will only give away the Tao scripture for nothing. Yi Jiming said, "Whirling school?" Yi Xian still shook his head. The whirling sect is powerful, but they only want my Taoist scripture. They won't really help me. Even if they help me, they will only help me. They won't help the entire 5-dimensional universe. They will even give up the 5th dimension to ease the relationship with other forces. In short, they will not rely on others. Yi Jiming said in a low voice, "Can you contact the woman in the plain dress?" Yi Xian raised his head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. He could not sense the woman at all. Yi Jiming said in a low voice, "This time is not like before. If the difference in strength between us is too great, the 5th dimension might become chaotic." Yi Xian nodded. This was also the problem he was most worried about. If the whirling world and the dark world joined hands, the 5th dimension would not be able to resist. In this situation, many experts in the 5th dimension might collapse. But this was normal, because the difference in strength between the two sides was too great. Yi Jiming said, "What are your plans?" Yi Xian was silent. After a while, he looked at the Tao scripture in his hand. This Tao scripture was a hot potato. Actually, if it was only because of the Tao scripture, it would be easy to deal with. But the problem was not only the Tao scripture. The whirling world built the teleportation array to invade this universe and take it for themselves. As if he thought of something, Yi Xian squinted his eyes. Teleportation array. Yi Jiming said solemnly, "If the teleportation array can't be built, then the whirling world won't pose much of a threat to us. If there is only dark abyss, then ancient god abyss won't have to sacrifice too much and the situation will become advantageous to us. Of course, the prerequisite is to stop them from building the teleportation array." Yi Xian suddenly kept the Tao scripture and came to Seven's room. Yi Xian said solemnly, "Seven, I want you to help me find someone." Seven looked at Yi Xian, "Who?" Yi Xian said a few words and moments later, Seven got up and left. "Hold on until I return." After saying that, she turned into a streak of sword light and disappeared. At the entrance of the room, Yi Xian raised his head and looked at the sky. "I will try my best." After saying that, he disappeared. Soon, Yi Xian found Xian Chu because he had to ask Xian Chu to know the coordinates of the teleportation array built by Xuanji sect. Xian Chu looked at Yi Xian, "You want to destroy the teleportation array?" Yi Xian nodded. Xian Chu shook his head, "Impossible. That teleportation array was built by a few major forces. Moreover, my whirling sect also participated in it. It's definitely not something you can destroy." Yi Xian smiled, "I still want to try." Xian Chu fell silent. Yi Xian asked again, "Can I?" After a moment of silence, Xian Chu said, "It's in the starry sky 120,000 li south of here. That's the coordinates chosen by Xuanji sect. They didn't expect you to destroy the teleportation array, so you can try." Yi Xian cupped his fists, thank you. After saying that, he got up and was about to leave. Xian Chu suddenly said, even if you destroy the teleportation array, you'll only buy some time. And they won't give up. Yi Xian said softly, all I need is some time. As soon as he finished speaking, he vanished. Xian Chu frowned slightly. What did he mean? Yi Xian didn't swagger off. Instead, he left Dao City stealthily and arrived at a starry sky according to Xian Chu's directions. This starry sky was the teleportation coordinates chosen by Xuanji sect. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes, and it didn't take long for the spatial Dao law to appear between his brows. A short while later, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes and looked into the distance. The space there was 300 m away was the coordinates chosen by Xuanji's sect because he'd sensed a mysterious force there. Yi Xian was about to attack when a voice resounded from behind him, if you dare to attack, you'll die right now. Chapter 14:28. Yi Xian turned around. In front of him stood a woman. She was dressed in a spotless white dress. The woman smiled, I am Xian Chu's master. Xian Chu's master. Yi Xian looked at the woman, whirling sect. The woman nodded, yes. You can call me Yuzun. They all call me that. Yi Xian was silent. The woman smiled, don't worry. I have no ill intentions towards you. Whirling sect will not ally with an Yuan. Yi Xian looked at the woman, why? The woman smiled, there are two reasons. First, I am good friends with the ancestor of Dao Ting, Zhao Jiqing. As for the second reason, I can't tell you for now. Yi Xian smiled, don't you want the Dao scripture? Yuzun said, we want it, but we won't snatch it from you. Yi Xian looked at Yuzun, why? Yuzun smiled, I won't answer this question. As she spoke, she looked at the space 100 zhang in front of Yi Xian. Do you really think you can destroy this teleportation array? Yi Xian said in a deep voice, sir, please give me some pointers. Yuzun smiled, in that space, there are at least 5 consolidation realm experts protecting the array. If you go in, do you think you can fight against 5 consolidation realm experts? Yi Xian shook his head, I can't. Yuzun walked in front of Yi Xian and looked at Yi Xian, now, you have 2 choices. First, take the 5th dimension Tendo and run as far as you can. If you want to escape, with the help of ancient God Abyss, they might not be able to catch you. Second, hand over the Dao scripture. Yi Xian smiled, give it to Whirling Sect? Yuzun nodded, if you give it to my Whirling Sect, I can promise you that my Whirling Sect will protect your 5th dimension. Yi Xian shook his head, I don't believe you. Venerable Yu smiled, why? Yi Xian looked at Yuzun, are you the sect leader of Whirling Sect? Yuzun shook his head, no, but the Whirling Sect leader is my senior sister. Normally, she would not go back on her word. Yi Xian smiled and said, average? Venerable Yu smiled and said, then do you have a better choice? Yi Xian looked at Yuzun, miss you, I can choose to die together with you. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and transformed into a streak of sword light that vanished into the horizon. Indiscriminate destruction. Yuzun spoke softly, would you do that? Right at this moment, the space before her suddenly started trembling. Yuzun frowned slightly when he witnessed this scene, so quickly. Looks like he can't wait any longer. Yi Xian returned to the 5th dimension. He looked at the world below him in silence. Passive. The current situation in the 5th dimension was too passive. Although the ancient God Abyss had agreed to help, he knew that if the price was too high, the ancient God Abyss would definitely retreat. Because it was impossible for the ancient God Abyss to become enemies with so many forces. Currently, if the ancient God Abyss retreated, the 5th dimension would not be able to fight back. Why did the Whirling World and the ancient God Abyss join hands? It was because they wanted to deal with the forces behind him. However, he was aggrieved because he did not know what forces were behind him. What forces were behind him? Yi Xian was also a little confused. He only knew of Qing. As for the others, he wasn't familiar with them, including the aunt from the Netherworld Hall who had come earlier. Thinking of this, Yi Xian sighed softly. Why did he feel like a scapegoat? At this moment, a woman suddenly appeared in front of Yi Xian. It was the Sky Sovereign. The Sky Sovereign looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, "You are very calm. If I'm not wrong, you must have contacted the people behind you. Am I right?" Yi Xian was silent. He wanted to curse. Contact? I will contact your mother. Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as crown prince will be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man wearing a black robe. Not far behind the old man stood a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the Yi clan's elders. Why? At this moment, a timid voice suddenly rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, Yi Xian's sister. When she heard that the clan wanted to remove Yi Xian, she rushed over despite her illness. The black-robed old man frowned. "Yi Ling, what are you doing?" The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall and said timidly, "Great elder, my brother Yi Xian is a crown prince. Why did you discard him for no reason?" The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. "This is a matter of the clan. Why are you interrupting? Leave." Yi Ling was afraid and didn't dare to look at the great elder, but she didn't leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and walked into the ancestral hall. She bowed again to the elders on both sides. "Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan for the mining rights in Nanshan. He's fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. But the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is really unfair. Impudent." The great elder suddenly said angrily, "It's not up to a little girl like you to decide whether to discard him or not. Men, drag her away." At this moment, the new crown prince Yi Lang suddenly smiled and said, "She should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others." The great elder said coldly, "Then flog her 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists and said angrily, "This is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years. Even now, he's fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him." One of the guards glanced at the new crown prince Yi Lang. He knew it was his chance to show off. The guard sneered, "Young Master Yi Lang inherits the position of crown prince. Why are you shouting?" As he said this, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded. The right side of Yi Ling's face instantly turned red and swollen. But she didn't cry. She just held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard and smiled. "What's your name?" The guard hurriedly bowed. "I'm Jianghu." "Greetings, Crown Prince." Yi Lang nodded. "You're not bad. After I become the Crown Prince, I'll need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on." Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed. He hurriedly bowed deeply. "I'm willing to go through fire and water for the Crown Prince." Yi Lang nodded slightly. "Drag him away. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show any mercy. Do you understand?" Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang. When he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu suddenly stopped when he saw something. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking toward the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe. The robe was tattered and covered in blood. This young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, his face dark and gloomy. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang and was about to speak. At this time, Yi Xian was like a ferocious tiger leaping in front of him. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pung! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged at Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man. How dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him and said, your man? As he spoke, he stepped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu. As he walked up to Yi Ling, seeing Yi Ling's appearance, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed out. Brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu and kicked Jianghu's head. Pung! Qingcheng, Yi Clan, Ancestral Hall. Ancestors, Yi Xian has no talent, no virtue. From now on, Yi Xian's position as prince shall be replaced by Yi Lang. The one who spoke was an old man in black robes. Not far behind the old man, there was a youth with a faint smile on his face. This person was Yi Lang. On both sides were the elders of the Yi clan. Why? At this time, a timid voice rang out in the ancestral hall. Everyone turned to look and saw a little girl standing at the door. She was about 12 or 13 years old, and her hands were tightly gripping the hem of her skirt. Her face had a sickly pallor, and she looked a little weak. There was even a trace of fear in her eyes. This little girl was called Yi Ling, and she was Yi Xian's younger sister. When she heard that Yi Xian was to be replaced, she disregarded her illness and rushed over. The black-robed old man frowned. Yi Ling, what are you doing? The little girl called Yi Ling bowed to the people in the ancestral hall, and said timidly, Great Elder, my brother Yi Xian is a prince, why did you discard him for no reason? The great elder looked at Yi Ling coldly. This is a matter of the clan, what are you interrupting? Leave. Yi Ling was obviously afraid, and did not dare to look at the great elder, but she did not leave. Instead, she plucked up her courage and entered the ancestral hall. She bowed to the elders on both sides. Elders, my brother is fighting with the Li clan over the mining rights at Nanshan. He is fighting for the clan, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Yet, the clan is using a groundless excuse to discard his position. This is unfair. Impudent. The great elder suddenly raged. Whether he discards his position or not, it's not up to a little girl like you to decide. Men, drag her away. At this time, the new prince, Yi Lang, suddenly laughed. You should be flogged 30 times as a warning to others. The great elder replied coldly, then flog her 30 times. Soon, 2 guards of the Yi clan rushed in. Yi Ling clenched her fists, and said angrily, this is unfair. My brother has risked his life for the clan for so many years, and even now, he is fighting for the clan. The clan is so unfair to him. One of the guards glanced at the new prince, Yi Lang. He knew that his chance to shine had come. The guard sneered, young master Yi Lang inherits the prince's position, and it's everyone's wish. What are you yelling about? As he spoke, he raised his hand and slapped Yi Ling's face. Slap. A crisp slap sounded, and the right side of Yi Ling's face instantly swelled up. However, she did not cry, and only held her cheek tightly. Yi Lang looked at the guard, and smiled, what's your name? The guard hurriedly bowed. Subordinate Jianghu greets the prince. Yi Lang nodded, you're not bad. After I become the prince, I need 10 guards. You can be my guard from now on. Hearing this, Jianghu was overjoyed, and hurriedly bowed deeply. This subordinate is willing to go through fire and water for the prince, even if it means death. Yi Lang nodded slightly. Drag him out. This person is disturbing the ancestral hall. Don't show mercy, understand? Jianghu glanced at Yi Lang, and when he saw the murderous intent in Yi Lang's eyes, he understood. He immediately grabbed Yi Ling's hair and dragged her out. At this moment, Jianghu seemed to have seen something, and suddenly stopped. In the ancestral hall, everyone turned their heads to look outside. Not far from the ancestral hall, a young man was walking towards the ancestral hall. The young man was wearing a tight-fitting robe, and the robe was tattered, and there was blood everywhere. The young man was Yi Xian, who had rushed back from Nanshan. Seeing Yi Xian, Yi Lang's lips curled into a sinister smile. Inside the ancestral hall, the elders frowned. The great elder narrowed his eyes, and his face darkened. No one knew what he was thinking. From afar, when Yi Xian saw Jianghu dragging Yi Ling, his face turned savage. Who gave you the guts to touch my sister? When Jianghu saw Yi Xian, his face changed. He hurriedly looked at Yi Lang, and just as he was about to speak, Yi Xian leaped in front of him like a ferocious tiger. Before the latter could react, Yi Xian's fist landed on his face. Pang! Jianghu felt a wave of dizziness, and he stumbled and fell. However, Yi Ling did not stop there. He charged towards Jianghu again. At this time, Yi Lang suddenly roared, Yi Xian, he's my man, how dare you? Yi Xian suddenly stepped on Jianghu's chest. Pooh! Jianghu spat out a mouthful of blood. Seeing this, Yi Lang's face turned ugly. Yi Xian looked up at him, and snarled, your man? As he spoke, he stepped on Jianghu's face. Jianghu's face turned into a bloody mess, as he screamed, Prince, save me. Yi Xian did not care about Jianghu, as he walked to Yi Ling's side. Seeing Yi Ling's state, Yi Xian felt as though his heart was being cut by a knife. He clenched his fists, and his entire body trembled. When Yi Ling saw Yi Xian, her tears flowed, brother, it hurts, it hurts. Hearing this, Yi Xian's expression turned savage. In the next instant, he charged in front of Jianghu, and kicked Jianghu's head. Pang! Chapter 1429. The appearance of these experts caused the entire starry sky to tremble. This expanse of the universe couldn't endure so many experts at all. Meanwhile, Li Qiuheng gazed at the Heavenly Exalt and smiled. Heavenly Exalt, my Black Illusion sect has a total of 8 Consolidation Realm experts and 22 Dao Transformation Realm experts. The same goes for the Profound School, Dao Returnance Institute, and Xiao Clan. What about you? Everyone gazed at the Heavenly Exalt. The Heavenly Exalt grinned. She knew that the members of the Whirling sect wanted to see in Yuan's strength. At this moment, she had no choice but to reveal in Yuan's strength. Because if in Yuan didn't reveal his formidable strength, then he wouldn't have the right to speak. The Heavenly Exalt smiled, come out. As soon as she finished speaking, 12 black-robed experts suddenly appeared behind her. The expressions of Li Qiuheng and the others changed slightly when they witnessed this scene. All 12 of them were actually Consolidation Realm experts. If the Heavenly Exalt and Earthly Exalt were included, then it was a total of 14 Consolidation Realm experts. Besides that, there were 30 Dao Transformation Realm experts. It could be said that in Yuan had the most experts amongst the great powers. At this moment, the members of the Black Illusion sect didn't dare underestimate in Yuan. Meanwhile, a white-robed old man walked forward. He glanced at them and smiled, everyone, I'm the old man, the Grand Elder of the Xiao Clan, Xiao Pingsheng. I think I should mention something in advance, and it's that there are only 6 scrolls of the Dao scripture. If we kill Yi Xian, then how will the 6 scrolls be divided? Everyone fell silent when they heard this. How to divide the Dao scripture was a very important question. Xiao Pingsheng smiled, we wouldn't have to kill each other then, right? Meanwhile, the Heavenly Exalt suddenly said, Elder Xiao, I think it's not suitable for us to talk about this now. Xiao Pingsheng gazed at the heavenly exalt, but this isn't a problem that can't be resolved without discussing it. The heavenly exalt gazed at Xiao Pingsheng. Elder Xiao, the premise of this question is that we're able to kill Yi Xian and annihilate the power that stands behind him. However, do you think we're 100% confident in our ability? Xiao Pingsheng chuckled and said, it's not that I look down on Yi Xian, but I really can't find any force in the entire universe that can fight against our joint forces. Even with the help of the ancient god Abyss and the Whirling Sect, it was impossible. According to what I know, the Whirling Sect has already chosen not to interfere in this matter. As for the ancient god Abyss, haven't they already left the fifth dimension? The Empyrean shook his head. Elder Xiao, the influence behind Yi Xian is unknown to us, and the unknown means that anything is possible. Xiao Pingsheng was about to speak when Li Qiuheng suddenly said, what the Heavenly Venerate said makes sense. I think it's still too early for us to talk about the Tao scriptures. It wasn't appropriate either. It wouldn't be too late to discuss the matter of the Tao scripture after he destroyed Yi Xian and the forces behind him. And if we talk about it now, it's very likely to cause some unnecessary trouble and problems. Hu Buhui also nodded, let's get rid of Yi Xian first. Seeing this, Xiao Pingsheng did not insist. He immediately nodded, then let's get rid of Yi Xian first. At this moment, Li Qiuheng suddenly laughed, speaking of which, with so many of us, will the forces behind Yi Xian be so scared that they won't dare to show themselves? If that's the case, then this trip to the fifth dimension will be too boring. The Empyrean chuckled, let's go. Let's go and meet Yi Xian. Everyone nodded. Soon, everyone disappeared. When they reappeared, they were already in the sky above the Tao city. When so many experts appeared in the sky above the Tao city, everyone in the Tao city was petrified. Then, everyone fell into despair. Even revered me felt despair at this moment. So many experts. How could the current fifth dimension fight against them? Below, Yi Xian walked out of the sword hall and looked up at the sky. When he saw so many experts in the sky, he fell silent. They really wanted to gang up on Yi Xian. Yi Xian slowly walked towards the sky. At this moment, a little girl appeared beside him. It was Nian Nian. Nian Nian grabbed Yi Xian's hand and softly said, I'll go with you. Yi Xian smiled, okay. At this moment, Zhang Wenxiu, and Lanxiu, and Lian Wanli also appeared beside him. There were also two people he was very familiar with. They were Xiao Dao and Qian Mo. Yi Xian looked at Xiao Dao and smiled, you shouldn't have come at this time. Xiao Dao looked at Yi Xian and said, if I didn't come now, I might not have the chance to come in the future. Yi Xian shook his head and smiled. He looked at Qian Mo, Miss Qian Mo, what about you? Although he had slept with Qian Mo, that was Sister Nian Xin. There were feelings between him and Qian Mo, but there didn't seem to be any. On the other hand, they had dual cultivated. What was this? Were they sleeping partners? Qian Mo looked at Yi Xian and didn't say anything. Yi Xian was about to speak when the celestial venerate in the sky suddenly smiled. Yi Xian, you seem to have a lot of female confidants. Yi Xian looked up at the celestial venerate and said with a smile, Celestial venerate, to be honest, aren't you overestimating me? Let me count, TSK, 46 Consolidation Realm, more than 100 Tao Attainment Realm. I'm only at Tao Defense Realm. Aren't you guys going too far? The celestial venerate looked at Yi Xian and said with a smile, I've investigated you. You had many opponents in the past, but they're all dead. Why? There's a very important reason, and that's because they looked down on you. They didn't go all out. They always gave you a chance to grow. So, you're alive, but they're dead. We won't make their mistakes. Look, we value you enough, right? Yi Xian was silent. The celestial venerate looked around and said with a smile, Yi Xian, where are your people? Yi Xian looked around and cursed in his heart, I also want to know where my people are. At this time, Li Qiuheng suddenly smiled, if an expert appears, with our strength, even if they're millions of miles away, will still be able to sense them. Unfortunately, I don't sense any powerful aura. As he said this, he looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian, don't tell me the people behind you are afraid? Below, Yi Xian suddenly turned to Venerable Me and the rest. You guys go. Venerable Me and the rest were stunned. Yi Xian smiled. There's no point in staying here. Venerable Me was silent. Yi Xian looked at Guan Yin below. Go. Guan Yin was silent. Go. It was obvious that the fifth dimension had no chance of winning. With all the experts of the whirling world and the dark abyss joining hands, how could Yi Xian resist? It should be known that these factions had a foundation of hundreds of thousands of years or even hundreds of thousands of years. And what about Yi Xian? His biggest support was Nian Nian, but now, Nian Nian had become a little girl. Not only could she not help Yi Xian, but she also needed Yi Xian to protect her. It could be said that the fifth dimension was a dead end. At this time, Yi Xian looked at Dao City below. Everyone, leave. He did not ask everyone to face the whirling world and the ancient god abyss with him, because that was equivalent to sending others to their deaths. In fact, he himself wanted to run away. But he knew that he could not escape, and he did not want to escape. He promised Sister Nian that he would protect this part of the universe, and he would do his best to do what he promised. Hearing Yi Xian's words, the people below had a complicated expression. They knew that Yi Xian wanted them to escape. Yi Xian looked at the people below and smiled. I'm sorry, I don't have the ability to protect you. Below, countless people suddenly slowly bowed to Yi Xian. In fact, Yi Xian not only changed the fifth dimension, but he also changed the fate of everyone. In the past, the fifth dimension, the sixth dimension, and the Dao world did not have a single true release realm expert, but now, let alone true release realm experts, there were many Dao validation realm experts. Moreover, Yi Xian also shared the Dao scripture. It could be said that Yi Xian changed everyone's fate. At this moment, when many people heard Yi Xian asking them to leave, their hearts were incomparably complicated. Unknowingly, they had already regarded the fifth dimension as their home. Here, it was really harmonious. In the sky, Yi Xian smiled again and said, Everyone, it is I, Yi Xian, who does not have the ability to protect everyone in this part of the universe. It has nothing to do with you. Below, an old man suddenly said in a trembling voice, Dao Master, why don't you escape? If you escape, with your talent, you might be able to contend against these people in the future. Escape? Yi Xian smiled lightly. They won't let me escape. Of course, I won't escape either. As he said that, he turned to look at Nian Nian beside him and said with a smile, I swore to you before. At that time, I said that I would live and die with the five-dimensional universe in the future. Although I was just playing tricks at that time, I never thought that this oath would actually come true. Nian Nian nodded slightly. She tightly held on to Yi Xian's hand. I will go with you. Yi Xian smiled. Okay. As he spoke, he looked at Dao City below. Everyone, stop wasting time. Let's go. Below, many people hesitated for a moment before fleeing one after another. This was a battle that they had no chance of winning. But there were still some people who stayed. Of course, there were not many. Yi Xian suddenly looked at Venerable Me. At this moment, an old man appeared beside Venerable Me. The person who came was Bai Dizzy. Bai Dizzy said softly, They can let those people below go, but they won't let us go. Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy and smiled. Bai Dizzy, as far as I know, your escaping skills are top-notch. Why don't you escape? Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. You are doubting's only hope. If you die, then doubting really doesn't exist anymore. If doubting is gone, there is not much meaning in me living. So, let me accompany you to death. Yi Xian was speechless. Venerable Me suddenly said, Bai Dizzy is right. You are the doubting's last hope. If you perish today, then doubting will have no more hope. If doubting has no more hope, then what's the point of us living? As he spoke, he gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. Today, let us accompany you on your last journey. Yi Xian smiled. Then he said, I didn't expect that we would have to live and die together today. Life is so wonderful. As he spoke, he gazed at Enlancio and the others. His gaze swept past them with a complicated expression. I really want to let all of you go, but I know that all of you definitely won't. When he spoke up to this point, he grinned. All of you wanted to return the favor in the afterlife, but I feel like they won't allow me to have an afterlife. So, I'm sorry. If there is a next life, please don't meet a man like me. Even I feel like I'm trash. Zhang Wenxiu gazed at Yi Xian. You've finally spoken the truth. Yi Xian laughed. He glanced at the women again and said, I don't want to see all of you die because that would be worse than death. So, let me die before all of you. As he spoke, he looked up at Venerable Tianji and the others and said softly, I want to defy the heavens and change my fate. I want to protect all of you and the fifth dimension by myself. But I can't do it. Reality is just so cruel. As he spoke, the blood within his body suddenly surged. In the next moment, a flame suddenly ignited within his body. Bloodline ignition. That wasn't all. His soul actually started to ignite as well. In a certain distant starry sky, a woman in a white robe suddenly stopped. She seemed to have sensed something, and she clenched her fists tightly while her eyes almost split apart from rage. Brother. Wait for me. Wait for me. As she spoke, she suddenly vanished at the end of the starry sky, and everywhere she passed was annihilated inch by inch. Chapter 1430. In the sky above Dao City, Yi Xian's ignition of his soul and bloodline shocked everyone. Even the celestial venerables and the others were shocked. They didn't expect Yi Xian to directly ignite his bloodline and soul. The celestial venerables stared at Yi Xian. Where is the person behind you? She had been waiting for the person behind Yi Xian to appear. But now, there was no one. Could it be that Yi Xian didn't have any force behind him? Or could it be that the force behind Yi Xian wasn't strong at all? After seeing the whirling sect and in Yuan joining forces, the force behind him was afraid. They didn't dare to appear. Below, Yi Xian suddenly laughed. Celestial venerables, I want to see the power of a consolidation realm expert before I die. Can you satisfy me? The celestial venerables looked at Yi Xian. Where is the person behind you? I'm afraid he won't dare to appear. Li Qiuheng suddenly laughed, just like the ancient god Abyss. Once the price is too high, no one will be willing to protect Yi Xian. So, Yi Xian must have been abandoned. He has been abandoned. The celestial venerables scanned the surroundings, but still didn't sense any powerful aura. No one appeared. At this moment, Li Qiuheng suddenly laughed. Yi Xian, didn't you want to see the power of a consolidation realm expert? I'll fulfill your wish. With that, he suddenly disappeared. Down below, Yi Xian laughed. Bring it on. With that, he leaped up and slashed at the sky with his sword. Dao sword. This slash was unprecedentedly powerful. After igniting his bloodline and soul, Yi Xian's strength skyrocketed like a volcanic eruption. And the moment Yi Xian slashed with his sword, he also used his Dao seal. With the enhancement of the Dao seal, bloodline, and soul, although he wasn't at the Dao attainment realm, his aura was several times stronger than an average Dao attainment realm expert. With this slash, a trace of shock flashed in the eyes of the celestial venerables. Yi Xian was only at the Dao defense realm. He was actually able to display such a powerful sword. The Empyrean looked down at Yi Xian, truly a monster. At the moment when Yi Xian slashed out with his sword, a fist print swept down from the sky and directly blasted on Yi Xian's sword. Boom! Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian returned to his original position. Li Qiuheng also returned to his original position. On his right fist, there was a deep sword scar. At this moment, Li Qiuheng's eyes turned solemn. This Yi Xian's strength had actually reached such a level. Meanwhile, the distant heavenly exalts suddenly said, "He's still getting stronger." Everyone looked at Yi Xian and saw that Yi Xian's aura was still rising crazily, as if there was no limit. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's body was slowly turning illusory. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly looked up at Li Qiuheng. Again. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly disappeared on the spot. Hiss. A ray of sword light shot into the sky from below. A strand of monstrous sword energy shook the heavens and the earth, and it was so powerful that all the experts in the surroundings were visibly moved. Li Qiuheng's eyes narrowed slightly, and then he suddenly clenched his right fist. At the instant he clenched his fist, the space around his fist suddenly transformed into a spatial vortex. In the next moment, he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Bang! The spatial vortex suddenly swept down, and the entire sky actually warped at this moment. Meanwhile, Yi Xian's sword arrived before him. Bang! The spectators watched as Yi Xian's sword slashed against the spatial vortex. The entire heavens and the earth trembled violently, and then the spatial vortex exploded apart and transformed into nothingness. The sword continued forward and slashed straight at Li Qiuheng. A wisp of viciousness flashed through Li Qiuheng's eyes. He flicked his sleeve, took a step forward, squatted down, clenched his right fist, and then smashed it down. Obliterate. A strand of obliterating energy swept down, and everywhere it passed, space was obliterated. Bang! Yi Xian and his sword were blasted back to where they stood earlier, and the space before him and Li Qiuheng had become pitch black. At the same time, a wisp of blood slowly seeped out from the corner of Yi Xian's mouth. In the sky, Li Qiuheng looked down at Yi Xian and said, "It's over." As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and then his figure plunged down. This charge seemed as if he intended to smash this expanse of the heavens and the earth into pieces. It was an extremely shocking sight. Yi Xian's eyes slowly closed while his right hand clenched tightly onto his sword. At this moment, he felt like he wasn't himself anymore. Strength. He felt like his body possessed boundless strength. He'd never felt so strong in his life. Of course, he knew that he'd obtained all of this at the cost of his life. Yi Xian didn't think too much about it and suddenly opened his eyes. In the next moment, he transformed into a fiery red ray of light that shot into the sky. Bang! Under the gazes of everyone, Yi Xian slashed Li Qiuheng back with a single strike of his sword, and the latter directly retreated 3 kilometers away. The eyes of the heavenly exalt in the sky instantly narrowed when he saw this scene. Yi Xian's strength was unusually strong. The other experts had extremely solemn expressions as well. Yi Xian's current strength wasn't inferior to a consolidation realm expert in the slightest. Even though Yi Xian had paid the price with his life, it was still too terrifying. In the sky, Li Qiuheng glanced at his chest. There was a sword mark there, and it was extremely deep to the point his bones could be seen. Li Qiuheng's expression was extremely unsightly. He'd never imagined that he'd actually been injured by Yi Xian twice in succession. An extraordinary humiliation. Li Qiuheng looked down at Yi Xian. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly vanished on the spot. A sword howl shook the heavens and the earth as a ray of light shot into the sky from below and slashed straight at Li Qiuheng. The expressions of everyone in the surroundings instantly changed when they saw this attack. This attack was even stronger than the previous one. Each attack was stronger than the previous one. Li Qiuheng didn't dare act carelessly in the sky. He pressed his palms together, and then he flipped his palms outwards when the attack arrived in front of him before swiftly pressing them forward. Bang! A powerful force swept out like a volcanic eruption from his palms. As soon as this force appeared, the entire sky instantly became illusory. Bang! Yi Xian's attack had been forcefully blocked. However, Li Qiuheng's countenance instantly turned ghastly pale. Meanwhile, Yi Xian suddenly stomped his right foot on the ground, and then he spun forward with his sword in hand. Hiss! The sound of something tearing resounded. Li Qiuheng's pupils constricted, and then he swiftly moved his arms forward to block Yi Xian's attack. Bang! As soon as Yi Xian's sword descended, Li Qiuheng was instantly pushed over 10 kilometers back. At the same time, one of his arms had been slashed into pieces by Yi Xian. The heavenly exalt stared fixedly at Yi Xian from afar. At this moment, she suddenly realized that she'd overlooked Yi Xian until now. Even though she felt that Yi Xian was an extraordinary genius, Yi Xian hadn't been able to pose any threat to her at all. But at this moment, she suddenly realized that her thoughts were wrong. If Yi Xian were to mature, then he would be extraordinarily terrifying. The experts from Whirling World had extremely solemn expressions on their faces as well. Because Yi Xian's combat strength had far exceeded their expectations. It could be said that, not to mention the fifth dimension, even if Yi Xian was in Whirling World, he would definitely be the #1 expert in the younger generation. Yi Xian must die. At this moment, both the Dark Abyss and Whirling World had unanimously come to a common understanding. The best way to deal with a genius was to strangle him. At this moment, Yi Xian once again rushed towards Li Qiuheng from afar. Wherever the sword light passed, it tore through everything. In the distance, Li Qiuheng's pupils suddenly shrank as he hurriedly said, "Attack." At this moment, he no longer dared to fight against Yi Xian by himself. As soon as his voice fell, 2 Consolidation Realm experts from the Xuanhuan sect suddenly appeared in front of him. But Yi Xian didn't choose to retreat. He slashed out with his sword. The 2 experts suddenly disappeared from where they stood. Rumble. Rumble. The sky trembled violently. Under the joint attack of the 2 Consolidation Realm powerhouses, Yi Xian was forced to retreat repeatedly. However, he did not retreat for long before he suddenly stopped and slashed forward. Chi. A blood-red sword light pierced through the air. Boom. This sword strike directly forced the 2 Consolidation Realm experts to retreat. Seeing this scene, the expressions of the Heavenly Exalt and the others not far away became even more unsightly. Yi Xian's strength was constantly growing. Stronger and stronger. At this moment, Yi Xian suddenly disappeared from where he stood. When he reappeared, he was already in front of one of the Consolidation Realm experts. Just like before, he slashed down with his sword again. The Consolidation Realm expert didn't dare to be careless and was about to attack with all his might when a sudden change occurred. A black and white Tai Chi circle suddenly appeared above his head, and in an instant, his realm was directly suppressed to the Tao Attainment realm. At the same time, Yi Xian's 4 domains directly enveloped the old man. This sudden turn of events caused the old man's expression to change drastically. He was just about to retreat, but it was too late. Yi Xian's sword fell. Chi. Under everyone's gaze, Yi Xian's sword slashed straight down from the old man's head. Chi. The sword slashed to the end, and the old man's body was split into 2. His soul was directly destroyed. The surroundings suddenly fell silent when they witnessed this scene. Yi Xian had killed a Consolidation Realm expert. After all, Yi Xian was only at the Tao Attainment realm at this moment. Killing an enemy 2 levels above him? Not far away, the experts of the Whirling World looked at Yi Xian as if they were looking at a monster. At this moment, Hu Bugui, who was next to the Celestial Venerable, suddenly said, "This person is too monstrous. Kill him." The Celestial Venerable nodded. "Kill him." As soon as her voice fell, a dozen Consolidation Realm experts suddenly rushed out in unison, heading straight for Yi Xian. Seeing the dozen Consolidation Realm experts rushing over, Yi Xian turned his head and glanced. He saw on Lanxiu, Nian Nian, Zhang Wenxiu, Lian Wanli, Xiao Dao, and Xian Mo. The only regret was that he didn't see Yi Ling. But it was good that Yi Ling wasn't here, so he could live on. As long as he could live on, that was good. Yi Xian slowly closed his eyes. Ling, I can't go find you. Don't blame me. You must live well. At this point, he suddenly opened his eyes, looked at the Consolidation Realm experts rushing towards him, and laughed. Come on. As his voice fell, he began to completely release all his power. Self-destruct. Not far away, Li Qiuheng said somewhat crazily, "Kill him. Kill him." As soon as he finished speaking, the experts behind him also rushed out one after another. And at this moment, a beast-like roar came from nowhere. "Who dares to touch him? Who dares?" Ah! The starry sky trembled. P.S. Vote for me. Chapter 1431. Everyone was stunned when they heard this voice. Who is it? Yi Xian listened to it as well, and he looked towards the depths of the starry sky. The voice was slightly familiar, but he couldn't recall who it was. The heavenly venerable's eyes narrowed. It's here. The force behind Yi Xian has finally appeared. Hu Bugue raised his head and frowned. I don't sense her aura. The nearby Shao clan's Shao Pingxing said in a low voice, the person hasn't arrived, but his voice arrived first. Hu Bugue said softly, looks like it's not easy to deal with her. Shao Pingxing spoke indifferently, it's good to increase the difficulty. Otherwise, it would be too boring. Hu Bugue smiled, indeed. They were curious about the force behind Yi Xian, but they weren't afraid at all. What a joke. A few dozen consolidation realm experts were gathered here. Did they need to be afraid? Suddenly, Li Qiuheng spoke fiercely, no matter who she is, kill Yi Xian first. As soon as he finished speaking, he charged towards Yi Xian. Yi Xian was an arrow at the end of its flight, and it was the best time to kill him. In next to no time, Li Qiuheng arrived in front of Yi Xian, and then he smashed his fist towards Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian was powerless to resist because he'd overdrawn all his strength. He could only watch as the fist smashed towards him. Right at this moment, the executing heaven's sword in his hands suddenly trembled violently, and numerous sword howls shook the heavens and the earth. At the same time, the space in front of Yi Xian was suddenly torn apart, and then a woman walked out from within it. The woman wore a white robe and had a wine gourd hanging from her waist. Along with the appearance of this woman, the gazes of everyone present descended onto her. Who is she? Yi Xian grinned when he saw her. Qing-er. She was Qing-er as well. But she wasn't a woman in a plain dress. Meanwhile, Li Qiuheng had arrived behind her. Li Qiuheng stared at the woman who had just appeared and said fiercely, "You can go and die too." As soon as he finished speaking, his left hand suddenly blasted a punch towards the woman. However, in the next moment, he was stunned. It wasn't just Li Qiuheng who was stunned, everyone else was stunned as well. Because a hand that was pure white like jade had suddenly grabbed onto Li Qiuheng's throat. This hand belonged to the white-robed woman. No one saw how the white-robed woman attacked. Even Li Qiuheng was dumbfounded at this moment. How did he get caught? The white-robed woman looked at Li Qiuheng. She lifted Li Qiuheng up like a little chick, her eyes bloodshot. What kind of trash are you? At this moment, everyone in the surroundings was stunned. At this moment, the expressions of the powerhouses from the whirling world turned solemn. A consolidation realm expert was actually powerless in front of this woman? The one who felt the most despair was still Li Qiuheng. He wanted to resist, but at this moment, all his strength seemed to have disappeared. He couldn't resist at all. At this moment, the white-robed woman exerted some force with her right hand. Ka-cha! A clear and melodious sound of bones breaking resounded in the field. Immediately after, under everyone's gaze, she directly plucked off Li Qiuheng's head. In the next moment, she held Li Qiuheng's head and threw it to the right. Boom! In the distance, a consolidation realm powerhouse was directly smashed by the head before he could react. Instant kill. Instantly killing two consolidation realm powerhouses. At this moment, the expressions of the Sky Sovereign and the others finally changed. At this moment, they seemed to realize the seriousness of the matter. Killing a consolidation realm powerhouse was like killing a chicken. The white-robed woman didn't attack again. Instead, she turned to look at Yi Xian. Yi Xian grinned. I'm going to die. At this moment, he felt extremely weak. Especially his soul, it was terrifyingly weak. The power of his bloodline was fine because he realized that although he had burned the power of his bloodline, it was useless. Even he couldn't extinguish his own blood. He had to admit that this made him feel a little ridiculous. If he couldn't do anything to his own blood, what the hell was this? The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian, and tears suddenly flowed from her eyes. With me here, how can you die? As she spoke, she gently placed her right hand on Yi Xian's shoulder. In the next moment, a powerful force directly enveloped Yi Xian. At the same time, with a wave of her right hand, the soul-suppressing sword appeared in her hand. She glanced at the soul-suppressing sword, then suddenly stabbed it into Yi Xian's chest. Boom! Suppressing the soul with the sword. Yi Xian's soul, which was about to dissipate, was forcibly suppressed by her power and the soul-suppressing sword. The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. You need to nourish yourself. After saying that, she turned to look at the Sky Sovereign and the others and said fiercely, my brother's soul is weak. Why don't you all die? As soon as her voice fell, she suddenly punched out. 100 feet away, a Consolidation Realm powerhouse died on the spot. Seeing this scene, everyone present was petrified. At this moment, the seriousness in the eyes of the Sky Sovereign and the others had turned into fear. With just one punch, the Consolidation Realm powerhouse died instantly. That was a Consolidation Realm powerhouse. The strongest powerhouse in the world. Not only the Sky Sovereign and the others, but Suzha and the others who were hiding in the dark were also stunned. Suzha gulped. He looked at Yi Xian below and said with a trembling voice, this young Master Ye's sister. What kind of deities are they? On the other side, the Lord and the others were silent. Especially Luo Ho and Ah Ku Wang. At this moment, both of them were sweating profusely. Back then, they had wanted to kill Yi Xian and obtain the Tao scripture. If they really killed Yi Xian, the two of them did not dare to think about the consequences. Yan Yaoyao looked at the weak Yi Xian in the distance and said softly, we still underestimated him. It was not just her. Everyone had underestimated the people behind Yi Xian. In the distance, after the white-robed woman killed the Consolidation Realm powerhouse with a punch, she waved her right hand and the Consolidation Realm powerhouse's soul was directly caught in her hand. Then, she turned around and placed the soul in front of Yi Xian. Absorb. Yi Xian, at this moment, the Sky Sovereign suddenly said in a deep voice, Your Excellency, what happened between us and young Master Yi was a misunderstanding. The white-robed woman suddenly turned around and in the next moment, she suddenly appeared in front of the Sky Sovereign. The Sky Sovereign's pupils suddenly shrank. Before he could react, the white-robed woman punched him in the face. Boom! The Sky Sovereign's head exploded like a watermelon. The white-robed woman grabbed the Sky Sovereign's soul, her face expressionless. This is also a misunderstanding. The Sky Sovereign's soul stared at the white-robed woman. Who the hell are you? The white-robed woman did not answer the Sky Sovereign. She sent the Sky Sovereign's soul in front of Yi Xian. Absorb. Yi Xian, the Sky Sovereign suddenly laughed self-deprecatingly. Ridiculous. I'm really ridiculous. All this time, her goal had been to deal with the people behind Yi Xian, but at this moment, she realized how ridiculous her idea was. The person in front of her was definitely far beyond the Consolidation Realm, and had even reached a realm that even she did not know. The reason why the people behind Yi Xian were not in this universe was because they were too strong, and this world was too weak. They did not want to play in this world. This was great. She and the others had joined forces to force them back. What was courting death? She was courting death. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from the horizon. Your Excellency, do you really have to be so ruthless? Hearing this, the Sky Sovereign suddenly looked up. There were two old men standing in the sky. One wore a white robe, and the other wore a black robe. The Dark Abyss Yin-Yang God. Seeing these two, the Sky Sovereign, who had originally given up resisting, suddenly opened her eyes. At this moment, she saw hope. Yin Yang God. These two had reached the peak of the consolidation realm tens of thousands of years ago. As for now, their strength was unfathomable, and even she did not know how strong they were. At this moment, the white-robed woman looked up at the Yin Yang God, and among them, the white-robed old man looked at the white-robed woman. Don't go too far. The white-robed woman's lips curled into a mocking smile. Go too far? I'll show you what it means to go too far. As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly disappeared on the spot. In the sky, the Yin Yang God's expressions changed drastically, and the white-robed old man who led them directly smashed his fist down. This fist smashed down, and the entire starry sky trembled as if it was about to collapse. It was extremely terrifying. At this moment, the white-robed woman suddenly punched out. Boom! Under everyone's gaze, the white-robed old man's power suddenly disappeared, and at the same time, the white-robed old man was directly sent flying tens of thousands of feet away. As soon as he stopped, his physical body directly exploded, and only his soul remained. At the same time, the white-robed woman punched out again, but this time, her target was the black-robed old man on the other side. The black-robed old man didn't even have the chance to react before his body exploded into pieces. It was an instant kill. Everyone here was petrified when they witnessed this scene. As for the heavenly exalt, he felt despair. He truly felt despair. The Yin Yang God actually didn't even have the ability to fight back before her. How strong is she? The white-robed woman directly brought the Yin Yang God's souls over to Yi Xian, and then she gazed at Yi Xian and spoke gently, quickly absorb them. Replenish them. Yi Xian was speechless. When she saw Yi Xian stunned, the white-robed woman spoke gently, don't just stand there. Quickly absorb them. The expressions of everyone here became extremely strange when they witnessed this scene. This woman was as bad-tempered as a volcano in front of others, but she was as gentle as water in front of Yi Xian. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, and then he gazed at the heavenly exalt's soul. The heavenly exalt stared fixedly at Yi Xian with slight resentment. Yi Xian, why didn't you tell me earlier that the person behind you is so heaven-defying? Yi Xian gazed at the heavenly exalt and said, would you believe me if I told you that I'm the son of the ninth dimension? The heavenly exalt turned to gaze at the white-robed woman, but she remained expressionless. What's the point of being the son of the ninth dimension? Big brother, if you want, then I can destroy the ninth dimension and make you the master of it. Yi Xian was speechless. The heavenly exalt was speechless. Suddenly, a formidable aura suddenly assaulted them from afar, and it was so strong that it caused the entire starry sky to tremble. Everyone here raised their heads and looked towards the depths of the starry sky when they witnessed this scene. The white-robed woman's eyes narrowed slightly, and there was a rare trace of seriousness in them. Meanwhile, the heavenly exalt suddenly gazed towards the depths of the starry sky and spoke in a trembling voice, it's definitely an expert of my dark abyss. Could it be the Abyss Master? The Abyss Master? Hope arose in the eyes of the Yin and Yang gods when they heard the heavenly exalt. The Abyss Master. That was a true powerhouse above the consolidation realm. Moreover, that was an expert that had surpassed the consolidation realm over 100,000 years ago. On the other side, the experts of the peaceful whirling world were quite excited as well. A top-rate expert of the dark abyss has arrived. There's hope. Didn't they notice that the invincible white-robed woman's expression had become slightly solemn? The aura in the starry sky was growing stronger and stronger, and it was so strong that it wasn't inferior to the white-robed woman at all. Right at this moment, the starry sky was suddenly torn apart, and then a woman walked out from within it. She held a sword in her hand. After she walked out, she glanced at the crowd below and said, who bullied the members of the Yang clan? Everyone was speechless. Chapter 1432. Who's bullying the members of the Yang clan? Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they heard this. Yi Xian was stunned as well. Who's here? On the other hand, the Heavenly Exalt and the others were stunned as well. Because there were quite a few people here, and it was the Master of the Dark Abyss. After all, the Master of the Dark Abyss was a man. Suddenly, the Heavenly Exalt's pupils constricted. You're Situ Tingyun. Situ Tingyun. The expressions of the Yin and Yang gods changed drastically when they heard the Heavenly Exalt. Situ Tingyun. This name was simply like a nightmare to Anne's abyss. It was exactly that woman who'd fought her way into Anne's abyss all those years ago, and she'd practically destroyed it. If she hadn't suddenly left, then Anne's abyss would have been gone by now. She's here. The Heavenly Exalt felt utter despair. She'd vanished for countless years, yet she'd returned to this universe for Yi Xian's sake. At this moment, she suddenly realized how naive her intentions to annihilate the people standing behind Yi Xian were. Any random person standing behind Yi Xian wasn't someone they could deal with. On the other side, the experts from the whirling world were dumbfounded. That woman isn't from Anne's abyss but from Yi Xian's side? We're finished. At this moment, the experts from Whirling World felt despair as well. Just the white-robed woman was enough to make them feel despair. Now, a swordsman who wasn't inferior to the white-robed woman had joined the fray. Situ Tingyun's gaze suddenly descended onto Yi Xian. It's you. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment before he said, Are you Senior Situ Tingyun? Situ Tingyun smiled. You should call me Senior Sister. Senior Sister. Yi Xian was speechless. Situ Tingyun walked over to Yi Xian, sized up Yi Xian, and then shook her head. He's on the weak side. Yi Xian broke out in a cold sweat. Situ Tingyun suddenly gazed at the white-robed woman. The white-robed woman had a calm expression on her face. Situ Tingyun smiled. I've heard of you. The white-robed woman glanced at Situ Tingyun. He's indeed the person with the greatest natural talent in the Sword Dao after him. No, your talent in the Sword Dao is above his. Situ Tingyun. Actually, the white-robed woman was not exaggerating. After all, Situ Tingyun had relied on the green-clothed man's 3 strands of sword intent to attain her current accomplishments. It could be said that besides the green-clothed man, Situ Tingyun's accomplishments in the sword sect were the highest. Situ Tingyun smiled and said, Shall we get down to business first? White Robe nodded and looked at Yi Xian. Absorb it quickly. Yi Xian did not hesitate. He absorbed the souls of the celestial venerate and the yin-yang gods. After absorbing the souls of the 3, his soul recovered at a ridiculous rate. While Yi Xian was digesting those formidable souls, the white-robed woman suddenly turned around to gaze at the members of the whirling world. Meanwhile, an old man walked forward. The old man bowed slightly to the white-robed woman. I am Xiao Pingxing from the Xiao clan. Greetings, senior, the white-robed woman suddenly punched out. Boom! Xiao Pingxing died instantly. His soul was annihilated. Everyone was speechless. At this moment, the remaining experts of the whirling world were shocked to the extreme. It was an instant kill. It wouldn't be so terrifying if it was just a victory. But it was an instant kill. A peak consolidation realm expert didn't even have the ability to fight back. At this moment, Hu Bugui from the Dao returning courtyard suddenly said. Bugui suddenly said, retreat. With that, he turned around and fled. They could only flee. They had no chance against the white-robed god of death. The white-robed woman glanced at Hu Bugui. Did I allow you to flee? As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly punched out. Boom! In the distance, Hu Bugui's expression changed drastically. He suddenly turned around and punched out. He knew he couldn't beat her, but he had to fight. If he didn't fight, he would definitely die. If he fought, he might have a chance to live. Boom! As soon as Hu Bugui punched out, a powerful force swept out from his fist like a tide. However, in the next moment, this powerful force vanished without a trace. At the same time, his entire body was forcefully wiped out by a powerful force. It was directly wiped out. The white-robed woman didn't stop. She suddenly pointed with her finger and the executing heaven's sword flew out. The next moment, a ray of sword light pierced through the air and traveled tens of thousands of miles. Chi! The sword traveled tens of thousands of miles. In the sky, bloody heads kept falling. Seeing this scene, Suja and the others who were hiding in the dark looked extremely fearful. One should know that the Whirling Sect and the Dark Abyss had dozens of Consolidation Realm experts and more than 100 Dao Attainment Realm experts. However, these people were like vegetables being chopped up. They didn't even have the ability to fight back. That sword directly killed dozens of Dao Attainment Realm and Consolidation Realm experts. This strength, Suja wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. He once again looked at Yi Xian, who was still absorbing souls not far away. This young Master Ye's sister. I don't know how many sisters he has. It's too scary. On the other side, the Lord and the others were silent. They had to admit that they had been dealt a heavy blow. What was a strong expert? This was a strong expert. As for themselves, they were as weak as chickens in front of such a strong expert. On the other side, Xian Chu was also watching this scene. In front of her stood a woman. It was Yu Zun, who had come into contact with Yi Xian before. At this moment, Yu Zun's expression was extremely grave. Before she came, she had specially investigated Yi Xian. Of course, she mainly wanted to investigate the white-robed woman. However, she didn't expect that the white-robed woman would appear instead of the white-robed woman. She also didn't expect that the white-robed woman would be so powerful. She definitely far surpassed Consolidation Realm experts. This time, the Dark Abyss and the Whirling World had kicked an iron plate. Behind Yu Zun, the great elder of the Whirling Sect suddenly wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Fortunately, we listened to Xian Chu and didn't join forces with the Dark Abyss and the others. At this moment, he was indeed afraid. If they had joined forces with the Dark Abyss and the other forces, it would have brought disaster to the Whirling Sect. Although the Whirling Sect had a deep foundation, they couldn't withstand the revenge of such a strong expert. Moreover, most importantly, there was more than one such expert. Who knew how many more there were? Xian Chu looked at Yi Xian in the distance and didn't say anything. In the distance, after the white-robed woman had killed those strong ones, she collected all of their souls and then sent them to Yi Xian. Absorb. Yi Xian's soul could be said to be extremely weak. The best way to nourish a soul was to use it to nourish it. At this moment, the souls of these experts were simply great nourishment for the current Yi Xian. After Yi Xian devoured the souls of the Sky Sovereign and the Yin-Yang gods, his soul aura suddenly skyrocketed. The white-robed woman suddenly turned to look at Suja, who was not far away. Seeing this, Suja hurriedly said, "Greetings, Senior. We are young Master Ye's friends." The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian and Yi Xian nodded. "Senior Suja and the others have helped me a lot." The white-robed woman nodded slightly and looked at Suja. "Thank you." Hearing this, Suja trembled. He was slightly flattered by this senior's thanks. But fortunately, this senior seemed to be reasonable. As for the white-robed woman, she was really a little unreasonable. The white-robed woman looked at Yu Zun and the others. Seeing this, the great elder hurriedly said, "Sir, we are also good friends with young Master Yi." The white-robed woman retracted her gaze and looked at Yi Xian. At this moment, Yi Xian was madly absorbing the souls of those experts. It was really great nourishment. Especially since he had the soul-suppressing sword. There wasn't much difference between him and the soul-suppressing sword. The white-robed woman just looked at Yi Xian, her eyes filled with gentleness. Actually, she didn't care about anything back then because there was nothing left for her to care about. During the battle between the white-robed woman and the green-robed man, she didn't choose to help the green-robed man not because she was afraid of the white-robed woman, but because she actually hoped that the white-robed woman could defy the heavens and change her fate. Among the four of them, the one they owed the most was her brother. No matter if it was her or the white-robed woman, they would never be able to forget that little boy that had starved to death in the cave. Right at this moment, Yi Xian suddenly opened his eyes. He didn't continue absorbing those souls because his soul had returned to normal, and it was better for the soul-suppressing sword to absorb the remaining souls. Yi Xian looked at the white-robed woman. Qing. The white-robed woman nodded. She walked over to Yi Xian, and then she took Yi Xian's hand and said softly, "I'm sorry I'm late." Yi Xian laughed bitterly. "I thought I was dead for sure." The white-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian. "You won't die with me here." Yi Xian said softly, "Qing, you and Qing, both of you are so strong. Do you know where she is now?" The white-robed woman raised her head and looked towards the depths of the starry sky. After a short moment, she shook her head. "She's very, very far away from us." Yi Xian asked, "Is it because of my misfortune seed?" The white-robed woman nodded. "Yes." Yi Xian furrowed his brows. "What is it?" The white-robed woman fell silent for a moment. "It's a very complicated thing. I don't know if this misfortune seed was forced upon you by others, or if it was your own doing. I've been investigating this matter, and I've just made some progress. Then, someone informed me that you're in danger." Yi Xian hurriedly asked, "Who informed you?" The white-robed woman fell silent. Yi Xian was about to ask more questions, but the white-robed woman shook her head. "One day, you'll understand everything." Yi Xian hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "All right. I won't ask any more." The white-robed woman turned to look at Suzhou. "Where is the dark abyss?" Hearing this, Suzhou was stunned for a moment, then he was overjoyed. Suzhou hurriedly said, "Senior, I'm willing to lead the way." The white-robed woman nodded. "Lead the way." As she said this, she looked at Yi Xian. "Let's go settle the score." Yi Xian was speechless. Situ Tingyun suddenly asked, "Do you need my help?" The white-robed woman pulled Yi Xian's hand and walked away without looking back. "Do you think it's necessary? P.S. One of our readers has a son today. Congratulations. I'll be giving everyone a red packet today. Remember to collect it." Unknowingly, many of our readers have already started their own families. I suddenly realized that we're all getting older. Chapter 1433. Along with the departure of Yi Xian and the white-robed woman, the fifth dimension suddenly fell silent. "Venerable Yu said softly, a calamity has descended upon Dark Abyss." Xian Chu said softly, "I'm afraid it isn't just Dark Abyss." The corners of Venerable Yu's mouth curled up. "Yes. However, it's great news for us." The Grand Elder suddenly said, "Venerable Yu, if Yi Xian wants the last scripture of our swaying sect, then we..." Venerable Yu glanced at the Grand Elder. "Wait for him? Shouldn't we be the ones to give it to him?" The Grand Elder was speechless. On the other side, the Lord suddenly smiled. "What do you think?" Behind him, Rahu and the others were silent. What do they think? That woman is already invincible. How do they think? Qi Yao Yao suddenly smiled. "Shouldn't we rejoice?" The Lord smiled, indeed. As he spoke, he looked towards the distance and said softly, "I finally know why Ancestor Doubting chose him. With such an expert behind him, wouldn't it be extremely easy for him to rebuild order?" Rahu suddenly said, "Can Dark Abyss stop that, senior?" The Lord replied softly, "I don't think so. However, Ancestor Dark Abyss isn't a simple figure. How could someone who could create the Dark Abyss be ordinary? Moreover, the Dark Abyss has existed for so long, and its foundation is far beyond our imagination." Qi Yao Yao smiled. "That's not something we should worry about." The Lord grinned, indeed. As if he'd thought of something, he suddenly looked towards Situ Tingyun. "We almost forgot about this, senior." A woman walked over to Situ Tingyun. It was Senior Sister Lu. Senior Sister Lu smiled and said, "Tingyun." Situ Tingyun grinned. "Senior Sister Lu." Senior Sister Lu hesitated for a moment before she said, "Do you know anything about him?" Situ Tingyun shook her head. "I don't." Senior Sister Lu fell silent. Situ Tingyun suddenly turned to look at Nian Nian. Nian Nian hurriedly lowered her head when she saw Situ Tingyun looking over. Situ Tingyun walked over to Nian Nian and smiled. "What's your name?" Nian Nian said softly, "Nian Nian." Situ Tingyun turned around to gaze at Senior Sister Lu. Senior Sister Lu hesitated for a moment before she said, "She's a fifth dimension Tendo." Tendo. Situ Tingyun smiled. Interesting. There's actually such an expert in this universe. Senior Sister Lu looked at Situ Tingyun. "Tingyun, can you help her recover her memories?" Situ Tingyun shook her head. Senior Sister Lu frowned slightly. "Not either." Situ Tingyun smiled and said, "She might have intentionally lost her memories. I believe that she will recover her memories when it's necessary." "Was it intentional?" Senior Sister Lu looked at Nian Nian in silence. Soon, her expression became complicated. What kind of person was the fifth dimension Tendo? That was a person whose strength and intelligence were close to that of a demon. How could such a person lose his memory? Could she be plotting something again? At that moment, Situ Tingyun suddenly turned her head. A powerful aura was rapidly approaching the fifth dimension's starry space from the whirling world to the fifth dimension. Another expert from the whirling world had arrived. Everyone was looking at the teleportation formation. It didn't take long for an old man to walk out from within it. He glanced at the surroundings and spoke in a low voice. "Where are they?" No one answered him. The old man suddenly gazed at Yuzun's group. "Yuzun, where are they?" Yuzun smiled. "So it's the supreme elder of the Blackout sect." The old man gazed at Yuzun. "What exactly happened here?" Yuzun hesitated for a moment before he said, "I want to tell you what happened as well, but I think that you might not believe me." The old man stared fixedly at Yuzun. "Something has happened to them." Yuzun nodded. "Yes." The old man's face turned gloomy. "Impossible." He seemed to have thought of something, and he glanced coldly at the surroundings. In the end, his gaze descended onto Situ Tingyun. "Who is it?" Situ Tingyun smiled. "I can be considered to be Yi Xian's senior sister." Yi Xian. The old man's eyes narrowed slightly while he slowly clenched his right fist, but he didn't dare attack. Because the woman before him gave him an extremely dangerous feeling. In his opinion, this was extremely absurd because he'd already attained the peak of the consolidation realm, and there weren't many in this world that could pose a threat to him. But at this moment, he really did sense danger. The old man thought for a moment before he relaxed his right hand. He felt that it was better to be cautious and keep a low profile. He looked at Situ Tingyun. "Where are the members of my Blackout sect?" Situ Tingyun smiled. "They're dead." The old man's expression instantly turned cold. "They're dead?" "My Blackout sect has 8 consolidation realm experts and a few dozen at the Dao attainment realm." "You're saying that they're dead?" Situ Tingyun nodded. "They're indeed dead." The old man laughed from extreme rage. "Dead? Don't tell me that they were killed." Situ Tingyun shook her head. "That's not it." The old man pointed angrily at Situ Tingyun. "What a huge joke. 8 consolidation realm experts and a few dozen consolidation realm experts in total, yet you're saying that they were killed." Situ Tingyun suddenly interrupted the old man. "Is the consolidation realm very strong?" The old man was stunned. Situ Tingyun hesitated for a moment before she said, "I don't mean to offend you, but I feel that it's enough to kill a consolidation realm expert with hands, right?" Everyone, on the other side, Yuzun's expression was very unnatural. The High Lord shook his head and smiled bitterly. "That's too much of a blow." In front of Situ Tingyun, the old man suddenly pointed at himself and smiled. "I'm a consolidation realm expert. You have hands, and 2 hands at that. Why don't you try killing me?" Situ Tingyun blinked. "That's what I said." The old man smiled. "That's what I said." At this point, the old man's pupils suddenly constricted because he saw a sword, a very, very ordinary sword. The sword was slightly blurry at first, but it quickly became clear. However, when he saw the sword clearly, it had already pierced his throat. A sword pierced through his throat. The old man looked at Situ Tingyun in disbelief. This, Situ Tingyun shrugged. I was the one who killed him. The old man was at a loss. Why? Why can't I even take a single sword strike? Situ Tingyun blinked. You might be a little weak. The old man suddenly roared. I'm at the peak of the consolidation realm. I'm at the peak of the consolidation realm. Situ Tingyun hesitated for a moment before she said, I was wrong. It's not that you're weak, but that you're very weak at the consolidation realm. The old man, on the other side, Lord Yu shook his head. This woman's words are so infuriating. I can't take it anymore. With that, she turned around and left. Xian Chu, the High Lord, shook his head and smiled bitterly. This senior is speaking. Farewell, farewell. With that, he turned around and left. Luo Ho and the others, in the distance, the old man in front of Situ Tingyun was at a loss. At the instant Situ Tingyun attacked, he knew that he'd encountered a true expert. She was too strong, and he was too weak. In some places, consolidation realm experts were at the top of the pyramid, but in other places, they were like cabbages. Different environments had different values. At this moment, Situ Tingyun suddenly looked at Senior Sister Lu. Senior Sister Lu, let's catch up. Senior Sister Lu nodded. All right. The two women left. The starry sky returned to peace once more. Somewhere in the starry sky, Yi Xian was flying on his sword, and the white-robed woman was by his side. Suzhou wasn't too far away from them. At this moment, Suzhou was extremely excited. How many years had the ancient god Abyss and the dark Abyss been fighting for? Countless years. However, both sides hadn't come to a conclusion. But now, the situation was about to change. Yi Xian suddenly looked at the white-robed woman. Qing, do you know the origin of my bloodline? The white-robed woman nodded. I do. Yi Xian hurriedly asked, who am I? The white-robed woman hesitated for a moment, and then she said, I know who your father is, but I don't know your mother. However, I do know that your mother isn't ordinary. Duge Xian. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. My mother is Duge Xian, but she said she was going to look for someone, and we haven't heard from her since. The white-robed woman said, she's very complicated, and I don't know the specifics. However, I do know that she isn't an ordinary person. Yi Xian fell silent. The white-robed woman continued, don't think too much about it. What you have to do is live well. Yi Xian spoke softly, I want to become as strong as you. The white-robed woman said, time. As she spoke, she gazed at Yi Xian, that Qing, or I know has lived for over 200,000 years. If she lived for that long, she would be as strong as you. Over 200,000 years. Yi Xian was slightly curious. Qing, are you originally from the three-dimensional universe? The white-robed woman nodded, yes. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled. Why are all the people from the three-dimensional universe so terrifying? The white-robed woman fell silent for a moment, then said, in the entire three-dimensional universe, there are only a few special ones. Yi Xian asked again, Qing, you've been to very far places, do you know how big this universe is? The white-robed woman shook her head, there's no end. Yi Xian asked, infinite? The white-robed woman nodded, something like that. As she said this, she seemed to have thought of something and said, there's a place that we have to be careful of. Yi Xian asked, what place? The white-robed woman was about to speak when Suzhou suddenly said, Senior, we've arrived. We've arrived. Yi Xian looked up and saw a huge abyss not far away. That abyss was like a pitch-black black hole in the starry sky, deep and mysterious. The dark abyss. Suzhou said solemnly, Senior, this is the dark abyss. There's a powerful enchantment around it. At this moment, the white-robed woman threw a punch. Boom! The huge abyss trembled violently. Immediately after, the boundary around the abyss vanished into thin air. The white-robed woman looked at the abyss, her face expressionless. Are you going to commit suicide, or should I kill you? Suzhou was speechless. Chapter 1434. Domineering. Too domineering. Suzhou looked at the white-robed woman. Why was Yi Xian's sister so domineering? Right at this moment, the enormous abyss suddenly trembled. In the next moment, an old man walked out from within it. Suzhou quickly said, "Senior, this is an elder of an Yuan. His strength is at the peak of the consolidation realm." The white-robed woman nodded. "You don't need to introduce me to someone who is about to die." Suzhou was speechless. In the distance, the old man bowed slightly to the white-robed woman. "Senior, I, and Yuan, was in the wrong this time. I, and Yuan, am willing to return the 2 scriptures and apologize to young Master Yi." He admitted defeat. Obviously, and Yuan already knew about what happened in the 5th dimension. The white-robed woman's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. "Apologize?" As she said that, she punched out. Boom! Before the old man could react, he was directly smashed into pieces by the white-robed woman's punch. The white-robed woman said, "Brother, apologize to him." Yi Xian was speechless. Suzhou had a strange expression on his face. At this time, another old man came out from the abyss. This old man held a black cane in his hand and looked at the white-robed woman. "Your Excellency, do you really want to be so ruthless?" The white-robed woman was expressionless. "When you went against my brother, did you think of holding back?" The old man said in a low voice, "Your Excellency, we already know our mistakes." The white-robed woman's expression became ferocious. "Mistakes? Since you know your mistakes, why don't you die?" Suzhou blinked and sweated. This senior is too scary. In the distance, the old man stared at the white-robed woman. "Your Excellency, I, and Yuan, am not easy to bully." The white-robed woman laughed. "I will bully you right now." As she said that, she punched out. Boom! The huge abyss in the distance began to shatter. Seeing this scene, the old man's expression changed. The white-robed woman wanted to destroy the entire dark abyss. The old man quickly said, "Sacrificial array." As soon as he finished speaking, the dark abyss suddenly trembled violently, and then numerous black blades flew out from within it. Moreover, figures could be seen within these blades. Yi Xian's expression turned solemn when he saw this. These giant blades contained extremely powerful energy that could easily tear space apart. At this time, the white-robed woman punched out. Boom! Those huge blades were instantly transformed into nothingness. At the same time, the entire dark abyss started to shatter. In next to no time, numerous shrill cries resounded from within the dark abyss, and then countless people fled from within it. The old man's countenance instantly turned pale when he witnessed this scene. At this moment, he was truly on the verge of despair. What kind of person was he? Why was he so ridiculously powerful? The white-robed woman was about to attack again, but at this moment, a middle-aged man, who was wearing a white robe, suddenly appeared. The man suddenly appeared in front of the white-robed woman. Suzhou's expression instantly became solemn when he saw this person, and he hurriedly said, "Senior, this person is the current master of the Dark Abyss, and his name is Mo Yuan." Mo Yuan looked at the white-robed woman. "Are you from Xian City?" The white-robed woman's face was expressionless. Without answering, she directly punched out. In the distance, Mo Yuan's pupils suddenly shrank. In the next moment, he suddenly rushed forward and also punched out. The moment he punched out, the space around him directly distorted into a strange shape. At the same time, the surrounding starry sky even cracked inch by inch. Compared to the white-robed woman's simple punch, the momentum of Mo Yuan's punch could be said to be earth-shattering. But soon, the power of Mo Yuan's punch began to dissipate inch by inch, like snow meeting boiling oil. Seeing this scene, Mo Yuan's pupils suddenly shrank. How? How is this possible? As soon as he finished speaking, his entire body disappeared without a trace. Killed with a single punch. In the distance, Suzhou's expression became extremely solemn. At this moment, his heart was in turmoil, and he was extremely shocked. He knew that he had seriously underestimated the strength of this senior. That was Mo Yuan. The current master of the Dark Abyss had been killed by a punch from the white-robed woman. Yi Xian was also a little shocked. Just how strong was this Qing? The white-robed woman didn't stop. She looked at the shattered Dark Abyss and blasted out another punch. A fist seal swept out. If this punch entered the Dark Abyss, the entire Dark Abyss would be turned into nothingness in an instant. One punch to destroy a world. However, just as the punch was about to enter the Dark Abyss, a finger seal suddenly flashed out from the Dark Abyss. Boom! The white-robed woman's fist seal was directly blocked, but in the next moment, the finger seal directly shattered. The fist seal went straight into the Dark Abyss, but there was no movement. Not far away, Suja's expression became solemn. He knew that the true expert of the Dark Abyss had appeared. Could it be the second elder of the Dark Abyss? The white-robed woman looked at the Dark Abyss with a calm expression. At this moment, an old man walked out of the Dark Abyss. The old man's back was a little heavy, and his hair was white. He looked particularly weak. Suja frowned because he didn't know the old man at all. The hunchbacked old man gazed at the white-robed woman, and a trace of a complicated expression flashed through his eyes. I never expected that the Dark Abyss would suffer such a calamity today. The white-robed woman clenched her right fist slowly. Meanwhile, the hunchbacked old man suddenly said, "Senior, I, and Yuan, am willing to submit to young Master Yi. I wonder if Senior can spare my life?" The white-robed woman turned to look at Yi Xian. Meanwhile, the hunchbacked old man hurriedly added, "Young Master Yi, if you're willing to show mercy, I, and Yuan, will follow young Master Yi forever." Yi Xian smiled, "I don't need it." The hunchbacked old man was stunned. Suja was stunned as well. He'd thought that Yi Xian would agree. After all, the entire Dark Abyss submitting to him was extremely tempting. After all, Yi Xian had subdued the Doubting as well. And the Dark Abyss was even more powerful than the Doubting. The hunchbacked old man looked at Yi Xian, "Young Master Yi, this old man doesn't understand. As far as I know, didn't you give the Doubting a chance? Why can't you give it to me?" Yi Xian shook his head. "When the Doubting ancestor made me the Doubting master, the Doubting was stronger than me, Yi Xian. The Doubting ancestor's strength was enough to crush me. But now, you chose to submit not because you want to submit, but because you want to live. The difference is huge." The hunchbacked old man was stunned, and just as he was about to speak, the white-robed woman suddenly said angrily, "My brother said there's no need. You don't understand, do you?" As soon as she finished speaking, she punched out. Boom! Before the hunchbacked old man could finish his words, his entire body turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared without a trace. He was directly erased. It was obvious that the white-robed woman had used a bit of strength in that punch. After killing the hunchbacked old man with a single punch, the white-robed woman looked at the shattered Dark Abyss, and in the next moment, she punched out. A fist swept through the battlefield, and the space in its path was annihilated inch by inch. It was an extremely shocking sight. If this fist entered the Dark Abyss, the entire Dark Abyss would be instantly turned into nothingness. Just as the fist was about to enter the Dark Abyss, a shadow suddenly appeared at the entrance of the Dark Abyss, and the shadow flicked his sleeve. Boom! The white-robed woman's fist was instantly blocked by a mysterious force. Suja's voice trembled as he spoke from afar, "Dao brother." The shadow before them was the ancestor of the Dark Abyss, Dao brother. However, it wasn't his true body, it was just a shadow. Dao brother. He was one of the disciples of the previous owner of the Dao scripture. Moreover, he had created the Dark Abyss. Dao brother looked at the white-robed woman in the distance, and he just looked at her without saying a word. After that, his body started to dissipate bit by bit. Suja frowned slightly when he saw this. What does this mean? Just like that, the Dao brother slowly disappeared in front of the three of them. Yi Xian was silent. What did she mean by this? At this moment, the white-robed woman waved her right hand, and 2 rays of white light suddenly flew out from the dark abyss and landed steadily in her hands. Tao Scripture. 2 Tao Scriptures. Yi Xian was about to speak, but the white-robed woman suddenly punched out. Boom! In the distance, the entire dark abyss was directly turned into nothingness. Completely wiped out. Seeing this scene, Suja's heart was filled with mixed feelings. The dark abyss and the ancient god abyss had been fighting for so many years, but now, this force had completely disappeared. At this moment, the white-robed woman suddenly said, "Let's go." Suja hurriedly asked, "Back to the 5th dimension?" The white-robed woman nodded. Suja was about to speak, but the white-robed woman said again, "Then go to the whirling world." Go to the whirling world. Suja was stunned. This senior still didn't want to give up. At this moment, the white-robed woman suddenly said, "Let's go." As she said this, she pulled Yi Xian and turned to leave. Suja hesitated for a moment, then followed. Whirling world. Somewhere in the clouds suddenly trembled. Soon, 4 experts appeared above the clouds. These 4 people were the Xuanhuan sect master Li Shanshui, the Xuanji sect master Gu Wuchao, the Dao Returning Academy's sect master Yunmin, and the Shao clan's patriarch Shao Jing. Xuanhuan sect master Li Shanshui suddenly said, "I think everyone should know that something has happened to the 5th dimension." Gu Wuchao said in a deep voice, "I can no longer contact the people of my Xuanji sect." Dao Returning Academy's sect master Yunmin said softly, "Me too." Shao Jing also said, "My Shao clan too." Xuanhuan sect master Li Shanshui suddenly said, "They might all be dead." Hearing this, the expressions of everyone present changed. Li Shanshui said softly, "Everyone, this time, we might have kicked an iron plate." Shao Jing looked at Li Shanshui. "No one should be able to destroy them over there." Li Shanshui said in a deep voice, "We might have underestimated the force behind the Yi Xian." Everyone fell silent. The force behind Yi Xian. Why had they sent so many experts to the 5th dimension this time? They wanted to destroy the force behind Yi Xian, seize the Tao Scripture, and divide the 5th dimension. But now, all the people they had sent were gone. Li Shanshui suddenly said, "Everyone, the people behind Yi Xian will definitely not let this go." Shao Jing said in a deep voice, "In Brother Li's opinion, what should we do next?" A cold light flashed in Li Shanshui's eyes. "We can't sit still and wait for death. We must strike first to gain the upper hand." As he said this, he looked at everyone. "Everyone, this time, we must work together and unite as one. I have already asked all the experts of my Xian Fei sect to rush back. Not only that, I have also invited some of the elders who are in seclusion. All the experts of my Xian Fei sect have rushed to the transmission array here. Everyone, I hope that you can do the same. Don't think that you will get lucky. The other party was able to destroy so many of us, so they must have a lot of people. None of our 4 clans can contend against them. Only when the 4 clans unite as one will we have a chance." After the other 3 were silent for a moment, Shao Jing suddenly said, "I will immediately ask all the experts of my Shao clan to rush here." Dao Returning Academy Master Yunmin also said, "The people of my Dao Returning Academy will arrive here in an hour at most." Xuanji Sect Master Gu Wuchao said, "Within an hour, all the experts of my Xuanji sect who are at or above the Dao attainment realm will appear here." Soon, countless experts of the entire whirling world rushed towards the transmission array that led to the 5th dimension. More and more people came because there were many vassal forces under the 4 super forces. P.S. Thank you for the support of all the readers. The monthly votes have increased a lot, thank you. Thank you very much. I don't think about healthcare anymore. Work hard to earn milk powder money. I want to be a righteous person. Chapter 1435. Under the call of the 4 major forces, more and more forces from the Saha world began to join them. However, the whirling sect, which had the greatest influence in the whirling world, did not make any moves. Whirling sect. In a certain pavilion, two women sat facing each other. One of the women was Yuzun, who had rushed back from the fifth dimension. The other woman was the current sect master of the whirling sect, Yushi. The two of them were playing chess. Yushi raised a piece and placed it down. Is what you said true? Venerable Yu laughed. Senior sister, do you think I would lie to you? Yushi shook her head, her eyes flashed a trace of complexity. I just can't believe that there is such a strong person in this world. Venerable Yu said in a low voice. I didn't believe it in the beginning either. Yushi shook his head and smiled. It seems that our vision is too narrow. In other words, the whirling world has limited us. Yuzun raised a chess piece and placed it down. Then, he said, Senior sister, have you considered it? Yushi chuckled and said, what's there to consider? Exchanging a Taoist scripture for a good karma, no matter how you look at it, it's our gain. Venerable Yu smiled and said, indeed. Yushi turned his head and took a look. Now more and more experts from the whirling world are rushing to that teleportation array. It seems that Xian Huan's sect wants to fight to the death. Venerable Yu shook his head, a mantis trying to stop a chariot. In her opinion, numbers meant nothing to a powerhouse at the level of the white-robed woman. Most importantly, there was also a female swordsman. That female swordsman was also terrifying. If the two of them joined forces, they could even shatter the whirling world, let alone destroy the mystic nebulous sect and other forces. At that moment, an old man suddenly appeared behind the two women. The old man bowed slightly and said, Sect Master Li Shanshui of the Profound Nether Sect has come to visit. Do you want to see him? Hearing this, Yushi looked at Yuzun and said with a smile, why do you think he came here? Venerable Yu spoke indifferently, he wants us to join forces with him. Yushi smiled and said, yes. The old man bowed slightly and then quietly retreated. A moment later, Li Shanshui appeared in front of the two women. Yushi stood up and said with a smile, Brother Li, why are you free to come to my whirling sect today? Li Shanshui smiled and said, Sect Master Yu, to tell you the truth, I came this time because I have something to ask of you. Yushi rolled his eyes at Li Shanshui. Brother Li, what do you mean by begging? You're treating me like an outsider. What's the matter, Brother Li, just say it. Li Shanshui looked at Yushi. Sect leader Yu, I think you should already know what happened in the fifth dimension. Yushi blinked. What is it? Li Shanshui's expression was calm. Damn, this woman is playing dumb. Li Shanshui smiled slightly. Sect leader Yu, I will be straightforward. We underestimated the power behind Yi Xian in the fifth dimension. This time, we want the whirling sect to join us. If sect leader Yu agrees, after we kill Yi Xian, all the Tao scriptures on him will belong to the whirling sect. Yuzun glanced at Li Shanshui. Needless to say, Li Shanshui's conditions were very tempting. After all, if the whirling sect obtained the Taoist scriptures from Yi Xian, they would have a total of 7 Taoist scriptures. Of course, not to mention 7 Taoist scriptures, the whirling sect wouldn't even be tempted by 9 Taoist scriptures. They didn't dare to be tempted. Yushi smiled. Sect leader Li, this condition is very tempting. However, sect leader Li, I will tell you the truth. This time, we won't interfere in the matter between you and the fifth dimension. Li Shanshui frowned. Why? Yushi smiled slightly. Sect leader Li, forgive me for speaking bluntly, but why should we interfere? Li Shanshui was silent. Yushi continued. Sect leader Li, if you obtain the Taoist scriptures from Yi Xian, my whirling sect won't be jealous. Li Shanshui glanced at Yushi and said, farewell. With that, he turned and left. After Li Shanshui left, Yuzun suddenly said, actually, if they go to the fifth dimension now, they can still be saved. Yushi looked at Yuzun. How? Yuzun smiled. Admit your mistake and beg for mercy. Yushi smiled. They won't. Yuzun nodded. As if thinking of something, she suddenly looked at Yushi. Senior sister, why didn't you tell him about the true strength of the person behind Yi Xian? Yushi blinked, he didn't ask. Yuzun gave a thumbs up, no wonder Master passed the position of sect leader to you. Amazing. Yushi smiled, if you want, I can give it to you right now. Yuzun stood up and walked over to Yushi, senior sister, if I had the intention to fight for the position of sect leader, would you have let me go? Yushi grabbed Yuzun's hand and smiled lightly, am I that bad in your heart? Yuzun smiled, even now, I still can't see through you. Yushi looked at Yuzun, after I took over the whirling sect, have I harmed anyone? Yuzun was silent for a moment, then smiled, I was thinking too much. With that, she turned and left. On the spot, Yushi said softly, silly girl. Somewhere in the clouds, more and more experts were gathering here. They were experts from all over the world. And they were all summoned by Xuanhuan's sect and other forces. The experts of the Xuanhuan sect and other forces had also arrived. At this moment, there were 69 consolidation realm experts gathered here. In addition, there were more than 300 Dao attainment realm experts and thousands of Dao defense realm experts. It seemed like a lot, but it was actually normal, because most of the top experts in the whirling world were here. In the five-dimensional universe. After Yi Xian and the white-robed woman returned to the five-dimensional universe, they did not stop. Instead, they directly went to the teleportation formation to the whirling world. The white-robed woman glanced at Suja in the distance, you can stay here. Suja hesitated for a moment, then nodded, okay. The white-robed woman nodded slightly, then led Yi Xian towards the teleportation formation. At this moment, a voice suddenly came from behind them, count me in. Yi Xian turned around and saw that the person who spoke was Situ Tingyun. The white-robed woman said, I alone am enough. Situ Tingyun smiled, I want to join in the fun. The white-robed woman was about to speak when Yi Xian suddenly said, then let's go together. Situ Tingyun smiled, then let's go. After saying that, she turned into a sword light and entered the teleportation formation. The white-robed woman and Yi Xian disappeared on the spot. In the teleportation formation passage, Yi Xian looked at Situ Tingyun, senior sister, I would like to ask you for advice on Sword Dao. Sword Dao. Situ Tingyun blinked, then smiled, the person beside you is also a swordsman. And a powerful swordsman. Yi Xian looked at the white-robed woman, Qing. Are you a sword and fist cultivator? The white-robed woman nodded, sort of. Yi Xian hurriedly said, then can you provide me with some guidance in Sword Dao? The white-robed woman glanced at Yi Xian, and then she said, your current Sword Dao already has a flavor of its own. However, it's still very, very lacking in terms of intent. Yi Xian nodded, yes. Is there any way to improve it? The white-robed woman thought for a moment, and then she said, I can point you in a direction. As for whether you're able to improve it, that's up to you. Yi Xian nodded, all right. The white-robed woman said, your current comprehension of the Sword Dao has attained the level of the unrestrained sword heart. What is the unrestrained sword heart? It's when the sword isn't restrained by yourself or anything else. However, your sword hasn't attained true freedom. What is freedom? It's freedom that comes naturally from not attaining it. You're far from attaining that level right now. The reason you're unable to attain that level is because you have too many trivial matters and too many burdens. There's an invisible shackle in your heart, and it's preventing you from attaining true freedom. Yi Xian fell silent. He understood what the white-robed woman meant. Because of the matter regarding the fifth dimension, he was utterly unable to attain true freedom in the sword heart. Yi Xian asked another question. Qing, then what about the level above the unrestrained sword heart? The white-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian and said, I can't tell you that. Yi Xian was slightly puzzled, why? The white-robed woman spoke softly, you've already created your own path in the Sword Dao. You can only explore this path on your own. Do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian fell silent. The white-robed woman continued, if you continue on this path, then your Sword Dao will truly create a path that truly belongs to you. At that time, you'll become someone that isn't within your realm of cultivation. As for our path in the Sword Tao, even though you can walk it as well, there's no need for you to. Yi Xian nodded slightly. I understand. The white-robed woman glanced at Situ Tingyun in the distance and said, her Sword Tao was also created by her own. Situ Tingyun nodded. Regardless of whether it's the Sword Tao or any other path, it's best to walk one's own path. Even though it's much simpler to walk someone else's path, there are too many limitations. As she spoke, she smiled faintly. In our eyes, there are only two types of people in this world. One is within the realm of cultivation, and the other is outside the realm of cultivation. Those within the realm of cultivation are equivalent to what the Milky Way realm calls the novice village. Those outside the realm of cultivation are the true experts. Yi Xian blinked. What's the meaning of novice village? Situ Tingyun smiled and said, it means that they're very, very weak. Yi Xian was speechless. Situ Tingyun continued, of course, the owner of this scripture is considered an expert. However, those who walk his path are not. Unless one surpasses him, one can only be considered to be unconventional. Unconventional. Yi Xian said in a low voice, is the owner of this scripture very formidable? Situ Tingyun smiled and said, I've never seen him. However, he was able to create a complete martial arts system, so he's definitely a genius amongst geniuses. Such a person is rare in this world. The white-robed woman nodded. This scripture's martial arts system is not bad indeed. As for the owner of this scripture, I've never seen him before, so I won't comment on him. Yi Xian suddenly asked, what about the woman in the plain dress? How strong is she? Situ Tingyun fell silent. The white-robed woman fell silent as well. Yi Xian glanced at the two of them and said softly, both of you should know, right? Situ Tingyun gazed at the white-robed woman. Ask her. Yi Xian gazed at the white-robed woman. The latter fell silent for a moment before she said, let's change the topic. Yi Xian was speechless. Chapter 1436. Yi Xian glanced at the white-robed woman. Obviously, she didn't want to talk about the Qing. What exactly happened during her generation? Why did only 2 out of the 4 Qing remain in the end? Yi Xian was quite curious. However, he didn't ask any further. Suddenly, the 3 of them stopped moving because an old man had suddenly appeared not too far away from them. The white-robed woman gazed at the old man with a calm expression and indifference in her eyes. The old man's gaze descended onto Yi Xian. You're Yi Xian. Yi Xian nodded. The old man glanced at the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun, and then he smiled. What? You've only brought 2 people with you? Yi Xian nodded. The old man laughed with ridicule. Yi Xian, who are you looking down on? Yi Xian was speechless. The old man sized up the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun again, and then he smiled. Yi Xian, don't you think you brought too few people with you? Yi Xian thought for a while. Then he said, yes, it is a little too little. The old man was about to speak when Situ Tingyun suddenly said, all of you seem to have been waiting for us. The old man gazed at Situ Tingyun. We've been waiting for a long time. Situ Tingyun blinked. Then lead the way. The old man glanced at Yi Xian's group of 3. Come on then. We've prepared a huge gift for all of you. I hope you like it. He turned around and left once he finished speaking. Situ Tingyun hesitated for a moment. I'm a little panicked. Yi Xian was speechless. The white-robed woman glanced at Situ Tingyun. You've learned quite a bit from him. As soon as she finished speaking, she led Yi Xian off into the distance. Situ Tingyun chuckled, and then she followed after them. Whirling world. At this moment, a few thousand people had gathered at the teleportation formation. There were a total of 98 consolidation realm experts amongst them. Moreover, there were over 500 Dao attainment realm experts. Among them, there were thousands of Dao defense realm experts. The Xuanhuan sect and the other three super forces had used all the resources they could. This time, they were serious. And they didn't dare to underestimate him. The fall of dozens of consolidation realm experts made them realize that they were definitely not facing an ordinary force. At that moment, an old man walked out from the teleportation formation. Not far away, Li Shanshui, the sect master of the mystic fraudulent sect, opened his eyes and looked at the elder. The elder said solemnly, "They're here." Li Shanshui narrowed his eyes. "How many?" The old man said, "Including Yi Xian, that makes 3. 3 people." Everyone was stunned when they heard this. Li Shanshui frowned. "Are you sure there are only 3 of them?" The old man nodded. "Just 3. However, the aura of those 2 women is very calm. I'm afraid they're not ordinary people." 3 people. Li Shanshui looked at the entrance of the teleportation array with a hint of doubt in his eyes. Yi Xian only brought 2 women to the Saha world? Was he confident, or did he have a backup plan? The Shao clan's patriarch, Shao Jing, spoke abruptly, "It isn't that simple." The Dao Convergence Dean, Yun Min, nodded. "Yes, we can't be careless." Li Shanshui gazed at the teleportation formation, "Then let's see how extraordinary they are." As he spoke, he closed his eyes slowly. Actually, there was a trace of uneasiness in his heart. It was absolutely impossible for Yi Xian to have no backup plan. Or perhaps, it could be said that those 2 women were absolutely not ordinary people. But at this moment, they had no way out. They couldn't beg for mercy from Yi Xian, right? He couldn't do something like that. 2 women gazed silently at Li Shanshui's group from high up in the clouds. They were Yuzun and Yushi. Yushi smiled, "Junior sister, looks like Li Shanshui and the others are prepared to fight to the death." Yuzun spoke softly, "Let's just watch in silence." Yushi gazed at Yuzun, "Do you know that if Yi Xian loses, then all of these powers will turn against my Saha sect?" Yuzun fell silent. If Yi Xian lost, then Li Shanshui would definitely utilize this opportunity to annihilate the Saha sect. Yushi was just about to speak when the teleportation formation in the distance suddenly started trembling. Both of them gazed at the teleportation formation. The gazes of everyone here descended onto the teleportation formation, and it didn't take long for 3 people to walk out from it. 2 women and a man. It was Yi Xian's group of 3. When Yi Xian walked out from the teleportation formation, he was instantly stunned. Isn't there a little too many people here? Moreover, there are actually so many experts here. The Shao clan's patriarch suddenly walked over to Yi Xian's group of 3, and he gazed at Yi Xian. "You're Yi Xian." Yi Xian nodded. Shao Jing smiled, "Young Master Yi, we underestimated you. I never expected that such an enormous power would actually stand behind you." As he spoke, he glanced at the white-robed woman and Situ Tingyun. "However, aren't you looking down on the experts of my Saha world a little too much by only bringing 2 people with you?" Meanwhile, the white-robed woman suddenly shook her head, "You talk too much." As soon as she finished speaking, she suddenly vanished on the spot. Shao Jing's pupils constricted, and then he suddenly smashed his fist forward. Bang! The spectators hadn't even been able to see it clearly when a figure was blasted flying. It was Li Shanshui. Li Shanshui frantically retreated. In the process of retreating, his physical body cracked inch by inch and his soul gradually dissipated. When he finally stopped, his physical body had already disappeared and his soul was almost transparent. Everyone in the surroundings was petrified when they witnessed this scene. The patriarch of the Shao clan is gone just like that? At this moment, Li Shanshui's countenance was pale while his eyes were filled with disbelief. He hadn't imagined that the patriarch of the Shao clan would be instantly annihilated with a single punch. At this moment, all the experts of the Saha sect were terrified. This wasn't victory, it was instant annihilation. He'd instantly annihilated a peak Unity Realm expert with a single punch. On the other side, Yushi's expression instantly became solemn as well. At this moment, she finally understood why her junior sister was so afraid of the fifth dimension. This woman was too strong. The white-robed woman gazed at Li Shanshui from afar. Li Shanshui's expression changed, and he said ferociously, "Everyone, attack together." As soon as he finished speaking, the experts of the Black Illusion sect charged forward. The experts of the other sects were about to attack as well. Right at this moment, the white-robed woman smashed her fist forward. Bang! All the experts of the Black Illusion sect that were charging towards her were instantly annihilated by a single punch. Over 100 Dao Attainment Realm experts and over a dozen Unity Realm experts had been instantly annihilated with a single punch. At this moment, the surroundings were so silent that a falling needle could be heard. So many experts had been instantly annihilated just like that. Everyone looked at the white-robed woman as if they were looking at a monster. On the other side, Yushi's expression was extremely solemn as well. She stared fixedly at the white-robed woman, and the shock in her heart couldn't be any greater. What sort of godly strength is this? In the distance, the white-robed woman gazed at Li Shanshui. Li Shanshui gulped and spoke with a trembling voice, "Senior, this is a misunderstanding." Everyone was speechless. The white-robed woman was expressionless. What misunderstanding? Li Shanshui's lips moved, but he didn't know what to say. At this moment, the Dao Returning Academy's dean, Yun Min, suddenly walked in front of the white-robed woman and bowed respectfully. "Senior, we are here today to welcome young Master Yi and you." Everyone was speechless. Yun Min bowed again and said, "Senior, if we have offended you before, please." The white-robed woman suddenly opened her palm, and the Dao scripture on Yi Xian's body flew into her hand. She looked at Li Shanshui and the others. "This is the Dao scripture that my brother obtained. Don't you want his Dao scripture? It's here now. Come and get it." Yun Min said with a trembling voice, "No. I wouldn't dare." The white-robed woman's mouth curled into a disdainful smile. "Wouldn't dare? You forced my brother to almost self-destruct. Still wouldn't dare?" As soon as she finished speaking, she blasted out a punch. Bang! Yun Min's entire body was annihilated by this punch. He didn't even have a chance to fight back. The expressions of everyone here changed drastically when they witnessed this scene, and they immediately fled. Meanwhile, the white-robed woman suddenly spoke fiercely, "Did I say that all of you could leave?" As she spoke, she smashed her fist forward, and an expert that was over 1 kilometer away was instantly obliterated by this punch. Everyone had stopped what they were doing. They didn't dare to move. The white-robed woman glanced coldly at them. "Do you want to live?" Everyone was stunned, and then they hurriedly nodded. The white-robed woman gazed at Li Shanshui. "What about you?" Li Shanshui spoke with a trembling voice. "I do. Don't beg for mercy." "No. It isn't shameful to beg for mercy when facing such an expert." The white-robed woman's face was expressionless. She glanced at Yi Xian and said, "This is my brother." Everyone looked at Yi Xian. The white-robed woman continued, "He's from the 9th dimension. He's the master of the 9th dimension, and he's reincarnated here to play." Yi Xian was speechless. Everyone glanced at each other. The 9th dimension? Does the 9th dimension really exist? The white-robed woman continued, "If you want to live, it's very simple. Follow my brother. In the future, he'll take you to the 9th dimension to play." Yi Xian was speechless. Everyone was speechless. Li Shanshui's expression was somewhat strange. "Why does it seem like this senior is tricking us?" The white-robed woman frowned slightly. "What, you don't believe me?" Hearing this, Li Shanshui hurriedly said, "I believe, of course I believe." Everyone else nodded hurriedly. The white-robed woman's face was expressionless. "Is it a grievance to follow my brother?" Li Shanshui hurriedly shook his head. "No. It's not grievance. It's our honor to follow young Master Yi." The white-robed woman was silent, and no one knew what she was thinking. Afraid that the white-robed woman would go back on her words, Li Shanxue hurriedly came before Yi Xian and bowed respectfully to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, from now on, we are your people. Yi Xian ignored Li Shanxue. He walked to the white-robed woman's side and said softly, Qing, The white-robed woman slowly closed her eyes. Brother, I'm leaving. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Leaving? The white-robed woman nodded. She opened her palm, and a blood-red thread suddenly appeared on her hand. Yi Xian was stunned. This is? The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. The cause of calamity. Yi Xian said solemnly, What do you mean? The white-robed woman raised her head and looked into the depths of the starry sky. There was a trace of confusion in her eyes. I underestimated this cause of calamity. Yi Xian was silent. At this moment, he thought of Nian Nian. Was Nian Nian's death really related to the Dao ancestor? With Nian Nian's strength, even if it was less than 20%, it should be enough to kill the Dao ancestor. Moreover, Nian Nian lost her memory. This was very unusual. At this moment, a powerful aura suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Everyone in the surroundings looked up into the sky. Li Shanxue gazed at Gu Wuchao with slight astonishment. What are you doing? Gu Wuchao laughed fiercely. She wants us to follow Yi Xian. She's probably overthinking things. As he spoke, he bowed deeply towards the sky. Greetings, ancestor. As soon as he finished speaking, a figure gradually condensed in the sky, and it wasn't long before a white-haired old man appeared within their fields of vision. The profound sect's ancestor. The white-haired old man glanced at the surroundings, and then he gazed at Gu Wuchao in the end. Has my profound sect encountered a threat of life and death? Gu Wuchao nodded and spoke respectfully, yes. As he spoke, he pointed at the white-robed woman in the distance. Ancestor, it's her who intends to destroy my profound sect. The white-haired old man gazed at the white-robed woman. The white-robed woman's expression was calm. The white-robed old man seemed to have noticed something, and his pupils constricted. He turned around to look at Gu Wuchao and roared furiously, You idiot! How could you screw over your ancestors like this? I'll fuck your ancestors. Everyone in the surroundings was speechless. P.S. Do you have tickets? Chapter 1437. Gu Wuchao was quite stunned. What's going on? The white-haired old man cupped his fists to the white-robed woman and said respectfully, May I know your name, senior? Senior? Everyone here was petrified when they heard the white-haired old man. The ancestor of the dark secret sect actually addressed the white-robed woman as senior? At this moment, Li Shanxue was covered in cold sweat. Because he'd actually wanted to summon his ancestor as well. That was the final trump card of the dark secret sect. However, he'd hesitated because he wasn't sure if his ancestor could resist the white-robed woman. But he hadn't expected that Gu Wuchao would summon his ancestor. Fortunately, Gu Wuchao had summoned his ancestor. Otherwise, he would be finished. The white-robed woman gazed at the white-haired old man. Are you not going to lend a hand? The white-haired old man hurriedly shook his head. Of course not. Of course not. The white-robed woman's face was emotionless as she gazed at Gu Wuchao. The latter's expression changed, and he hurriedly bowed respectfully. We're willing to follow young Master Yi to the death. The white-robed woman paid no attention to Gu Wuchao, and she gazed at Yi Xian. Come with me. Yi Xian nodded. All right. The white-robed woman turned around and left. Yi Xian followed her. Situ Tingyun glanced at the others here, and they were looking at her as well. Situ Tingyun blinked. Does anyone want to spar with me? All of them were speechless. At the other side, Yi Xian and the white-robed woman were strolling through the clouds. The white-robed woman said, I have to go. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Qing, do you know much about the cause of calamity? The white-robed woman shook her head. Not much. She paused for a moment and continued, I've been constantly investigating the cause of calamity throughout the years, and I've made some progress. I'll get to the bottom of it once I leave. Yi Xian spoke in a low voice. Why can't I sense the cause of calamity within me? The white-robed woman gazed at Yi Xian. Because you're not strong enough. Yi Xian was speechless. The white-robed woman said softly, the cause of the calamity is mainly this cause. Everything in the world has a cause and an effect. We don't know how this cause was formed. As she spoke, she looked up at the starry sky and said softly, people living in this world are like chess pieces on a chessboard. Of course, the chess player might also be a chess piece. Fate is like an invisible hand that controls everything in the world. Yi Xian smiled bitterly. Am I that chess piece? The white-robed woman looked at Yi Xian. She grabbed Yi Xian's hand and said softly, this universe is boundless, and there are too many unknowns. Look at this starry sky. There are countless galaxies and planets. These galaxies and planets are all moving confidently according to some kind of law. How could all of this be a coincidence? If it wasn't a coincidence, then who created all of this? Both you and I could be pawns. Even the three of them didn't dare to say that they were invincible in the universe. Yi Xian fell silent. The white-robed woman continued, I'm going to leave this place and investigate the cause of your calamity. You have to take care of yourself from now on, understand? Yi Xian looked at the white-robed woman. Will there be any danger? The white-robed woman shook her head. I don't know. Yi Xian was just about to say something when the white-robed woman said with a smile, I can protect myself. She gently hugged Yi Xian as she spoke. Yi Xian's body stiffened. Yi Xian didn't notice that 2 streams of clear liquid had appeared on the white-robed woman's cheeks. After a long while, the white-robed woman released Yi Xian. She pulled out a storage ring and placed it in Yi Xian's hand with a faint smile. There's still time. She pointed a finger toward the sky as she spoke. Chi. The space in the sky suddenly cracked open. Immediately afterward, she transformed into a streak of white light and disappeared into the cracked space. Gone. Down below, Yi Xian's gaze was slightly blank. The white-robed woman stopped somewhere in the starry sky. She looked at her palm, and there were already 2 bloody marks on it. The white-robed woman's expression was cold, and no one knew what she was thinking. Moments later, she suddenly turned and looked down. After a long moment of silence, she transformed into a streak of white light and disappeared into the starry sky. The whirling world. Yi Xian returned to the teleportation portal. Situ Tingyun looked at Yi Xian. She left? Yi Xian nodded. Situ Tingyun smiled. Then I'm leaving as well. Yi Xian looked at Situ Tingyun. Senior sister, where are you going? Situ Tingyun laughed. I'm going to find a place that makes me feel threatened. Yi Xian, Situ Tingyun walked over to Yi Xian and patted Yi Xian on the shoulder. Little junior brother, we'll meet again. As soon as she finished speaking, she was about to leave. However, she seemed to have thought of something, and she suddenly gazed at the ancestor of the School of Secrets in the sky. The latter's expression changed. Sir? Situ Tingyun smiled, don't be nervous. I don't kill people indiscriminately. The old man was speechless. Situ Tingyun continued, I want to show my ability before I leave, and you're the strongest here. So, make your move. The white-haired old man hesitated for a moment before he said, I can't defeat you. Situ Tingyun rolled her eyes. I didn't say that you can defeat me. I just asked you to make your move, and then I'll show my ability. The white-haired old man was speechless. Situ Tingyun continued, make your move quickly. I'm busy. Right, remember to use your full strength. The white-haired old man glanced at Situ Tingyun. Then I'll have to offend you. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly opened his palm. In the next moment, he suddenly slapped it towards Situ Tingyun. Bang! A palm swept down from the sky. As soon as it appeared, the expressions of countless experts in the surroundings changed drastically, and they retreated explosively. Because the energy contained within that palm was truly too terrifying. At this moment, Yi Xian's expression had become solemn as well. That palm had definitely surpassed the perfect union realm. The white-haired old man stared fixedly at Situ Tingyun. Actually, he wanted to witness her strength as well. At this moment, everyone in the surroundings was looking at Situ Tingyun as well. The corners of Situ Tingyun's mouth curled up slightly. Her left thumb twitched slightly, and then a sword suddenly flew out from within its sheath. In the next moment, a ray of light flashed from below, and then a sword was pressed against the white-haired old man's throat. On the other hand, the white-haired old man's attack had vanished without a trace. Everyone in the surroundings was stunned when they witnessed this scene. Gu Wuchao's legs even felt slightly weak. At this moment, he finally understood why his ancestor had been so terrified. It was too fucking terrifying. The white-haired old man gazed at Situ Tingyun with a complicated expression. Senior's sword Dao is unparalleled throughout the ages. Situ Tingyun roared with laughter, and then she gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. That attack from before is called instant death. Every strike of my sword kills an enemy within a 3 kilometers radius. I've once utilized this sword technique to kill a person who's 2 realms of cultivation above him. Now, I'll pass it down to you. When she spoke up to this point, she seemed to have thought of something, and she roared with laughter. All those years ago, he passed down sword intent to me and allowed me to step into the sword Dao. Today, I'll pass down my sword technique to you. Interesting. Ha ha ha. As she spoke, she tapped with her finger, and a ray of light shot into the center of Yi Xian's forehead. Yi Xian's figure trembled, and it didn't take long for countless pieces of information to surge into his mind. Situ Tingyun gazed at Yi Xian and smiled. Little junior brother, we'll meet again in the future. I hope we'll be able to discuss the Tao with the sword when we do. As soon as she finished speaking, she transformed into a ray of light that vanished into the horizon. She's gone. The experts from the whirling world instantly heaved sighs of relief when they saw Situ Tingyun leave as well. Meanwhile, 2 women suddenly arrived in front of Yi Xian, and it was Yu Shi and Yu Zun. Yu Shi grinned. Young Master Yi. Yi Xian gazed at Yu Shi. You're the sect master of the whirling sect. Yu Shi smiled. I am. As she spoke, she opened her palm, and a scripture appeared there. She passed it to Yi Xian. Young Master Yi, this is the last scripture. Fate brought us together today, so I'll give it to young Master Yi. Fate. Li Shanshui and the others had extremely strange expressions on their faces. Damn it. She really knows how to talk. Needless to say, the whirling sect had really become the biggest winner. Because the whirling sect hadn't suffered any losses this time. Actually, they'd come to an understanding now. The reason the whirling sect hadn't joined forces with them was definitely because they knew how formidable the person standing behind Yi Xian was, so they refused to cooperate with them. But this woman just refused to tell them. She'd caused them to be practically annihilated. She was too treacherous. Yi Xian glanced at Yu Shi. He didn't refuse, and he took the scripture and said, Sect Master Yu, I've gathered all 9 scriptures, and I'm willing to share them with the whirling sect. Yu Shi blinked. Really? Yi Xian nodded. Of course. Yu Shi grinned. Thank you, young Master Yi. Actually, she was really happy. Because even if Yi Xian didn't share them with the whirling sect, she wouldn't dare say anything. She didn't know if Yi Xian was really the master of the 9th dimension, but she knew that he was absolutely not an ordinary person. After Yi Xian put the scripture away, he glanced at everyone here. Everyone, return to your respective residences. As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Meanwhile, Li Shanshui hurriedly said, Young Master Yi, we're all following you now. You. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he said, I'll look for all of you if I need anything. Li Shanshui hesitated for a moment, and then he said, Young Master Yi, I'll follow by your side. All the experts of the Black Hat sect had been killed. So it was utterly meaningless for him to stay in the whirling world. Yi Xian was about to speak when Li Shanshui added, "Young Master Yi, my Black Hat sect has been around for over 100,000 years, and we still have some finances. If young Master Yi doesn't mind, then I'll give them to young Master Yi." Yi Xian glanced at Li Shanshui, and the latter hurriedly said, "I don't have any ill intentions. I just want to follow young Master Yi." Now, Yi Xian was his only way out. Yi Xian thought for a moment, and then he nodded. "All right." Li Shanshui hurriedly said, "Young Master Yi, please wait a moment. I'll go back and pack up." As soon as he finished speaking, he turned around and left. Yi Xian glanced at the experts of the Dao Returning Institute and the Shao clan in the distance. They didn't make a stand. He didn't force them. Obviously, they wanted to stay in the whirling world, and they didn't really want to follow Yi Xian. After all, no one liked to be the subordinate of another. Moreover, the white-robed woman and the swordsman had left. Right at this moment, the ancestor of the profound secret sect suddenly looked at Gu Wuchao and said angrily, "What are you still looking at? Hurry up and pay your respects to young Master Yi. Are you trying to make me crawl out of my coffin from anger?" Gu Wuchao was speechless. Chapter 1438. When he heard the white-haired old man, Gu Wuchao hurriedly walked over to Yi Xian and bowed respectfully to Yi Xian. "From today onward, my profound secret sect swears to follow young Master Yi to the death." Yi Xian gazed at the white-haired old man. The white-haired old man grinned, "Young brother, it's their honor to follow you." He hesitated for a moment as he spoke, and then he said, "I hope you'll treat them well as well." Actually, even though everyone here was aware that the white-robed woman and the swordsman were terrifying, they didn't know exactly how terrifying they were. However, the white-haired old man knew. Because he was an expert above the oneness realm. However, not to mention that he was only a strand of his soul, even his main body wouldn't be a match for a single attack from that woman. In other words, the strength of those two women had exceeded the scope of his understanding. If the profound secret sect followed Yi Xian, then it would definitely be able to attain glory once more. In the profound secret sect's opinion, it wasn't submission, it was an opportunity. An enormous opportunity. On many occasions, the accomplishments a person could attain in the future depended on who that person followed. The profound secret sect had arrived at a certain height, and it was very difficult for it to improve further. Unless an extraordinarily monstrous genius appeared within the sect. However, that was even more difficult. Because it had been many years since an expert above the oneness realm had appeared in the whirling world. Now, an opportunity had been placed before the profound secret sect, and it was to follow Yi Xian and rely on Yi Xian to bring the profound secret sect to a new height. Yi Xian hesitated for a moment when he heard the white-haired old man, and then he nodded, "All right." He didn't refuse them. The reason Qing hadn't killed them was because she wanted to leave and leave some help for him. But now, he really did need help. He wanted to reorganize the fifth dimension and the Tao Ting. He wanted to truly rebuild order. And he needed people to accomplish all of that. After they heard the profound secret sect's ancestor speak, the other powers expressed their submission as well. They suddenly understood something, and it was that Yi Xian was a backer. This thigh was right here, so why not cling to it? Now that the profound secret sect had Yi Xian as their backer, if they didn't submit, what would they do if the profound secret sect came looking for trouble with them in the future? Most importantly, there was still the whirling sect in the whirling world. This time, the whirling sect didn't suffer any losses. It could be said that the whirling sect was currently the strongest sect. If they didn't cozy up to Yi Xian, it was very likely that they would be devoured by the whirling sect. So, after weighing the pros and cons, basically all the powers present expressed their willingness to submit to Yi Xian. And Yi Xian did not refuse. Meanwhile, Li Shanshui appeared here, and he walked over to Yi Xian and smiled, "Young Master Yi, let's go." Yi Xian nodded. "All right." As he spoke, he glanced at the others. "All of you stay here and wait for my orders." Everyone hurriedly nodded. Yi Xian turned around and left with Li Shanshui. After the two of them left, the others glanced at each other, and their eyes were filled with bitterness. This time, all of them were almost finished. On the other side, the whirling sect's master, Yu Shi, remained silent, and no one knew what he was thinking. Exalt Yu smiled. Senior sister, are you slightly disappointed? Yu Shi smiled. What are you disappointed about? Exalt Yu gazed at the experts in the distance. Senior sister, you're disappointed that those two didn't kill all of them. If those two seniors killed all of them, then the whirling world would belong to my whirling sect. But now, all of them have sided with Yi Xian, so we can't attack or curse them. We seem to be quite passive instead, right? Exalt Yu smiled. Indeed. Yu Shi spoke softly. Senior sister. Regardless of whether we admit it or not, that young Master Yi isn't someone we can afford to offend now. Even if he wants our whirling sect to submit, we have no other choice. Yu Shi fell silent. Exalt Yu continued. Fortunately, that young Master Yi doesn't seem to be very interested in the whirling world. Yu Shi suddenly raised his head and looked towards the horizon, and he spoke softly. I'm curious now. I'm curious about exactly what level of cultivation those two women have attained, and where they've gone. A short while later, everyone here left. Once all of them left, a slovenly old man appeared here. This slovenly old man was called over by the White Cloud swordsman, and everything had come to an end when he arrived here. The slovenly old man fell silent for a long time before he spoke softly. That young Master Yi isn't simple at all. Meanwhile, a figure suddenly appeared by the slovenly old man's side. It was the ancestor of the Dark Abyss, Dao Brother's second brother. Dao Brother's second brother gazed towards the direction Yi Xian had left towards. Senior brother, long time no see. The slovenly old man's face remained emotionless. Your Dark Abyss is gone. Dao Brother's second brother smiled. If it's gone, then it's gone. What's the big deal? The slovenly old man gazed at Dao Brother's second brother. You won't give up, right? Dao Brother's second brother roared with laughter. Do you think I should give up? The slovenly old man shook his head. Junior brother, why? You, and Yuan, were in the wrong in this matter. Dao Brother's second brother roared with laughter. I don't care if I'm in the wrong or not. All I know is that kindness must be repaid, and enmity must be repaid. The slovenly old man spoke softly. If you choose to take revenge, then you'll be doomed eternally. Dao Brother's second brother gazed at the slovenly old man. Senior brother, do you know his true identity? The slovenly old man shook his head. I don't. Dao Brother's second brother gazed at the slovenly old man and smiled. Senior brother, you didn't come back for this person, right? The slovenly old man glanced at Dao Brother's second brother. Junior brother, out of respect for master, I'll say one more thing. Give up on taking revenge. If you insist on taking revenge, then you'll really be doomed eternally. He turned around and left once he finished speaking. Dao Brother's second brother smiled. Senior brother, aren't you underestimating me? The slovenly old man sighed. We're used to being invincible in Master's era. However, we don't know that there's always someone better out there. Dao Brother's second brother chuckled. How interesting. Two women scared you, senior brother. Senior brother, you're becoming less and less courageous as you live. The slovenly old man turned around and glanced at Dao Brother's second brother. Master once said, don't argue with a retard, because it will lower your IQ. I think Master's words are very reasonable. Dao Brother's second brother looked at the slovenly old man. Senior brother, don't forget that the Dao scripture belongs to our Dao sect. Now, it's in the hands of outsiders. Why, don't you have any thoughts about it? The slovenly old man was silent. Dao Brother's second brother smiled. You don't have any thoughts, but I do. I believe that third junior sister and junior brother will not allow the Dao scripture to fall into the hands of outsiders. He turned around and left after he finished speaking. The slovenly old man sighed softly. Yi Xian brought Li Shanshui back to the fifth dimension. Inside the main hall, Guan Yin and the others were there, as were the experts of the Dao Ting. It was worth mentioning that Bai Dizzy was also there. And now, the affairs of the entire fifth dimension were not only handled by Guan Yin alone, but also by Dizzy. Bai Dizzy's management skills were really terrifying, not something that Guan Yin could compare to. It should be known that Yi Xian's side was not only in the fifth dimension, but also in the sixth dimension, the Dao world, the Dao Ting, the underworld. There were so many places and so many forces. It could be said that Guan Yin's ability was already somewhat insufficient. But after Bai Dizzy's arrival, she suddenly felt a lot more relaxed. As for fighting for power, whether it was her or Bai Dizzy, they did not have that level of power. Ordinary power was simply meaningless to them. Now, Guan Yin was slowly delegating power because she also began to pay attention to personal cultivation. Over the years, because she had to deal with complicated matters, her cultivation had fallen behind. Yi Xian looked at everyone. Now, our crisis has been temporarily resolved, but we still have a lot of things to do. At this time, Bai Dizzy walked out. He bowed slightly to Yi Xian and said, "I have something to report." Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. "Speak." Bai Dizzy nodded. "We have 3 things to do now. The first is to formulate a set of laws that everyone will abide by. This set of laws will be the standard by which we will manage this world in the future. Those who violate the laws, no matter who they are, will be severely punished. I have already drafted this set of laws, and I will show it to you later." Yi Xian shook his head. "Not only for me to see, but also for everyone in the hall. Moreover, it has to be shown to the world." Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. Yi Xian said, "This set of laws will be the foundation by which we will manage this world in the future. So, this set of laws can't be formulated by a single person or a few people. Everyone should participate in it." When they heard this, everyone hurriedly nodded to express their agreement. Bai Dizzy glanced at Yi Xian and nodded. "That's for the best. As for the second matter, even though the external crisis has been resolved, there might be an internal crisis soon. Alliance leader Yi, all the powers are envious of the mineral veins that you obtained earlier. Besides that, there are also some places in our universe with abundant spirit energy that everyone is envious of. Now, the thoughts of many people have started to drift away. So, we have to be extremely careful in how we distribute the benefits." Yi Xian glanced at Bai Dizzy. This Bai Dizzy has really thought things through. Actually, many powers have started to fall into chaos from within before collapsing. The current fifth dimension must also pay attention to this point. Bai Dizzy continued, "As for the third matter, that is development. Vigorously develop. For now, we have resolved the crisis. However, because of Alliance leader Yi, this crisis might not exist for the time being. In the future, there might be an even bigger crisis." Yi Xian's face was filled with black lines. The White Emperor's son continued, "In short, we need to be strong enough to protect ourselves. In addition, we must train as many outstanding people as possible." After a moment of silence, Yi Xian said, "Everyone retreat. Bai Dizzy, you stay behind." Everyone looked at each other and retreated. Inside the hall, only Yi Xian and Bai Dizzy were left. Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. "Do you think that now is the right time to rebuild order?" Bai Dizzy shook his head. "Not suitable." Yi Xian was somewhat puzzled. "Why?" Bai Dizzy softly said, "Because we have more problems to deal with. For example, the internal balance of power, how to divide the benefits. If these problems are not dealt with properly, it will be a hidden bomb. If you are not here one day, this bomb will explode and the entire fifth dimension will instantly collapse." As he said this, he looked at Yi Xian. "Right now, we can only take one step at a time. You must not be too hasty. Moreover, I feel that the problem you should be thinking about right now is not the fifth dimension and order, but the problem of your strength and the reason for your disaster. Moreover, the Dark Abyss has been destroyed, but is the ancestor Dark Abyss still alive? Will he take revenge? Moreover, you now have the complete version of the Tao scripture. This temptation is too great. Will some hidden forces come to snatch it? They might not dare to openly, but what about in the dark? Moreover, those two seniors have already left. If you are in danger, can you immediately let them come to the fifth dimension? The most important thing is that they are very strong, but this does not mean that you are strong. Do you understand? Yi Xian was silent. P.S. Yesterday, when I went to the real estate market, I suddenly discovered that I am a bit poor, FPZW. Chapter 1439. In the hall, Bai Dizzy glanced at Yi Xian with a complicated expression. Alliance leader Yi, don't think that our crisis has been resolved. In fact, according to my understanding and investigation of you, this matter is definitely not over. Yi Xian said softly, the cause of calamity? Bai Dizzy nodded. Yi Xian was silent. Bai Dizzy continued, for now, your top priority is to improve your strength. It would be best if you could attain Tao or even unification. Yi Xian nodded. I understand. Bai Dizzy continued, do you still have the Tao cause and God's seal that the ancestor gave you? Yi Xian nodded. Of course. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice, I will make arrangements. Now, you are the spiritual belief of our entire five-dimensional universe. This belief must be materialized. I will get people to build statues of you all over the world so that people will believe in you. Then, you will be able to obtain the power of faith continuously. Yi Xian frowned. Brainwashing? Bai Dizzy shook his head. It's not brainwashing. The entire universe treats you as their spiritual belief. You are the one who gave the five-dimensional universe everything. They are willing to believe in you. However, I want to materialize this power of faith for you to use. Yi Xian thought about it and nodded. All right. Bai Dizzy continued, there is one more thing. I have already recalled many of the former Tao guardians. They also need the power of faith. Of course, if they want the power of faith, they will have to fight for it themselves. Of course, I will take care of it and not let them act recklessly for the sake of fighting for the power of faith. In addition, I will reintegrate the five-dimensional universe, the Tao world, the six-dimensional universe, and the Tao Ting. I will try my best to integrate everyone into one. There will be no division between the five-dimensional and the six-dimensional universe. Yi Xian nodded. This is very necessary. Bai Dizzy nodded. What I'm most afraid of is them forming small groups. If that happens, it will be very troublesome to manage them. Yi Xian looked at Bai Dizzy. I'll leave these matters to you. Bai Dizzy nodded. I will take care of the matters of the five-dimensional universe. As for you, you must increase your strength as soon as possible. Also, if possible, help Miss Nian Nian recover her memories. If she does, our universe will be safer. Yi Xian shook his head. I can't do anything about that. Bai Dizzy said in a low voice, did Miss Nian deliberately lose her memory? Yi Xian nodded. It's highly possible. Bai Dizzy frowned. Why would she deliberately choose to lose her memory? Is it because of the disaster seed on you? Yi Xian whispered, maybe it's because of this. Why didn't the white-robed Qinger stay? Because of the cause of calamity. The cause of calamity had already affected her, so she chose to leave immediately. In other words, the stronger the person by her side, especially the kind of person who could change the trajectory of her fate, the more likely she would be targeted by the cause of calamity. And now, Nian Nian was not targeted by the cause of calamity. Because she did not have the strength. Was that the reason? Yi Xian did not know. But he knew that Nian Nian definitely had her reasons for doing this. Bai Dizzy sighed softly. Her expression was complicated. Then let's not talk about Miss Nian Nian. Let's talk about you. You should have gathered all 9 Tao scriptures by now, right? Yi Xian nodded. Yes. Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. Many people are paying attention to you. Yi Xian smiled. You want me to share them? Bai Dizzy nodded. Yi Xian smiled. Then do you think I should share them? Bai Dizzy looked at Yi Xian. It depends on whether you want to or not. If you don't want to, no one can force you. Yi Xian said softly. I promised them that I would share them. Bai Dizzy said in a deep voice. Even if you want to share them, you can't just casually share them. Some people's cultivation is not enough to comprehend this Tao scripture. Do you understand what I mean? Yi Xian nodded. Bai Dizzy said. You deal with these things yourself. With that, he left. Inside the hall, Yi Xian sat cross-legged on the ground. He opened his palm. The 9 Tao scriptures appeared in front of him. At this moment, Yi Jiming appeared beside him. Yi Xian looked at Yi Jiming. I never thought that I would really gather all 9 Tao scriptures. I just don't know if it's a blessing or a curse. Yi Jiming said. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Yi Xian smiled. That's true. With that, he looked at the last 3 Tao scriptures. 2 of the scrolls were obtained from an yuan. These 2 scrolls were Tao and Law. Yi Xian frowned. Tao? Law? Yi Jiming opened the Tao scripture. After looking at it for a moment, she looked at Yi Xian. This Tao scripture can allow one to reach Tao Imperial and Tao attainment. It describes these 2 realms, which is suitable for you now. As for Law, Yi Xian asked. Return to 1? Yi Jiming nodded. Yes. Yi Xian said in a deep voice. The Tao ancestor and the rest have not reached return to 1. Yi Jiming looked at Yi Xian. What about Zhao Jiqing's generation? Hearing this, Yi Xian understood. Although the Tao ancestor has not reached return to 1, Zhao Jiqing has definitely reached return to 1. Obviously, it's not because of the Tao scripture, but because of the Tao ancestor's generation. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice. This Tao scripture is too profound. I can't understand it. Yi Xian was a little surprised. Even you can't understand it? Yi Jiming nodded. My realm is not high enough to understand it. For example, this sentence. Humans follow earth, earth follows heaven, heaven follows Tao, Tao follows nature. It's easy to understand from the words, but what is the true meaning of this sentence? Yi Xian was silent. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice. This Tao scripture has tens of thousands of words, and there are hundreds of Tao scriptures. In this world, there is not only Tao, but also Law. Saying this, she looked at Yi Xian. This senior who created the Tao scripture is really an amazing person. Yi Xian nodded. In this world, there are 2 kinds of experts, those within the Tao scripture and those outside. It could be said that the senior who created this scripture was absolutely terrifying. This was because he had created a complete cultivation system, and this cultivation system was the origin of all martial arts that were currently known to exist. Yi Jiming said in a deep voice, we can study this Tao scripture. If we can understand the Tao scripture, it will definitely benefit you greatly in terms of cultivation. As for the Tao scripture, martial arts, and heart sutras, I can't understand them at the moment. Yi Xian nodded. Take your time. As if thinking of something, he looked at the last Tao scripture. There were no words on it. Wordless Tao scripture? Yi Jiming opened the Tao scripture, and when she opened it, she was instantly stunned. Because there was nothing inside. It was empty. Wordless Tao scripture. Yi Xian and Yi Jiming exchanged glances. Their eyes were filled with confusion. Yi Xian frowned slightly. Could it be that the whirling sect gave us a fake one? Yi Jiming shook her head. I don't think so. Yi Xian nodded. I don't think it's possible either. Yi Jiming suddenly said, it seems like Miss Xian Chu hasn't returned to the whirling sect yet. Why don't we invite her over? Yi Xian put the Tao scripture away and disappeared from the hall with Yi Jiming. A while later, Yi Xian found Xian Chu, who was eating noodles in a small noodle shop in the city. Xian Chu was stunned when she saw Yi Xian. She put down her chopsticks and looked at Yi Xian. "What's up?" Yi Xian said with a smile, "Miss Xian Chu, I have something to ask." Xian Chu nodded. "Speak." Yi Xian took out the last Tao scripture and placed it in front of Xian Chu. Xian Chu glanced at Yi Xian. "Did the sect master give it to you?" Yi Xian nodded. Xian Chu fell silent. Yi Xian said with a smile, "I've collected all 9 Tao scriptures. I promised the whirling sect master that I'm willing to share them with your sect." Xian Chu nodded. She opened the Tao scripture. When she saw the Tao scripture, she was slightly stunned. Yi Xian frowned. "What's the matter?" Xian Chu said with a deep voice, "I've never seen a Tao scripture before because master taught me verbally." Yi Xian fell silent. At this moment, a voice came from behind Yi Xian, "Alliance Master Yi, do you need help?" Yi Xian turned around and saw a woman standing not far from him. It was Venerable Yu. Venerable Yu smiled. "Young Master Yi, are you wondering why there are no words in this Tao scripture?" Yi Xian nodded. "Yes." Venerable Yu smiled. "Young Master Yi, there are no words in this Tao scripture." Yi Xian frowned. "Why?" Venerable Yu looked at the Tao scripture and said softly, "Young Master Yi, what is the Great Tao?" "The true Great Tao?" Yi Xian fell silent. Venerable Yu looked at Yi Xian. Tao is not only the Tao of the universe, but also the Tao of nature. The Tao is in the matter, and the matter is in the Tao. All things lead to the same destination, and they all lead to the Tao. Everyone is pursuing Tao, but they don't know that Tao is right beside them. Tao is you, and you are Tao. Yi Xian fell silent. Venerable Yu smiled. "You don't understand, do you?" Yi Xian nodded. Venerable Yu smiled. "On the surface, it's easy to understand. But it's not so easy to understand the concept. Just like what people say, a mountain is not a mountain is still a mountain, and a mountain is not a mountain. This is a concept of life. Those who haven't experienced it won't understand it no matter what you tell them." As she spoke, she looked at Yi Xian and added, "Tao was not just a tangible substance, a thoughtful spirit, or a rational law. Instead, it was the invisible, ethereal, and spiritual root of the universe that created all of this. Matter, spirit, and law were all derivatives of Tao. Tao is the innate qi, the primordial chaos. Tao is the ancestor of nature, the origin of all things in the universe. Mr. Yi, this last Tao scripture is broad and profound. Even my whirling sect has only comprehended a little bit of it, and this little bit is like a drop in the ocean for this Tao scripture." When she spoke up to hear, she looked at the Taoist scripture with a complicated expression. "The ancestor of my whirling sect once said that the knowledge of this Taoist scripture is boundless. Even if he spent his entire life studying it, he wasn't able to study it completely. Not to mention studying it completely, he didn't even study a tenth of it." After a moment of silence, Yi Xian asked, "Senior, where did the owner of this Tao scripture go?" Venerable Yu looked at Yi Xian. "It said that he died." Yi Xian was stunned. "Died?" Venerable Yu nodded. Yi Xian frowned. "How is that possible?" Venerable Yu shook her head. "Nothing is impossible." Yi Xian said in a deep voice, "Did he die naturally or was he killed?" Venerable Yu said softly, "I don't know. However, it shouldn't be a natural death. This kind of expert can study Tao so thoroughly, so how could he die naturally? But if he was killed?" Saying that, she didn't continue. You're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.